Imagine a book that does not simply teach magic, but challenges the very core of your soul. A book that promises a touch of unearthly light, and at the same time opens the door to the darkest corners of hell. It offers no riches or power. It demands everything: your time, your mind, your very self. They say those who dare to walk this path either disappear without a trace or return utterly transformed. And here lies the greatest fear. Every line of this book is a trap, and if you stumble even once, you may open a path for those who never forgive mistakes. Today, we will peer into the legendary grimoire, the Book of Abramelin, and try to understand why it forever changed the lives of those who dared to attempt its ritual. This is not just a collection of ancient texts. It is a key that opens forbidden doors between worlds. The true power of the Book of Abramelin lies not in spells or formulas, as in most grimoires. Its ritual is a months-long journey deep into the human psyche, a calling to forces that have long slumbered on the edges of our reality. The ritual promises the most precious of rewards, a meeting with your holy guardian angel, but hidden behind this promise are countless conditions, each a snare. The ritual spans from 6 to 18 months, and during this time, you must live in isolation, in complete silence, away from the noise of the world, away from any comforts, away from yourself. During this ordeal, you must entirely dedicate your life to the ritual: multiple daily prayers, abstinence from any carnal pleasures, fasting, control over every emotion. But the most important requirement is absolute discipline. Because the moment you allow weakness to creep into your mind, the forces watching you will begin to draw closer. The book warns plainly: you opened the door, now beware of whom you let in. These doors lead not only to your guardian angel, but also to demons who eagerly await your mistake. They do not frighten you with monstrous forms. They are subtle. They will come as temptations, fears, and doubts. Strange dreams begin, where someone stands just behind your back, whispers in the house, unexplained noises, movements at the edge of your vision. Culvry angel, reality itself, starts to thin like fragile threads, breaking one by one. Those who described their experience with the Abramelin ritual claim, it is like standing on the threshold between two worlds, and the slightest error, a word spoken out of time, a fleeting thought of doubt, and instead of the angel, others will come. Those who wish to consume you from within. This is not a metaphor. Documented cases exist where people who attempted the ritual disappeared or ended up in asylums with conditions no doctor could explain. Suspicious, too, is the story of Aleister Crowley himself, one of the most infamous occultists of the 20th century. Crowley attempted to perform this ritual at Boleskine House on the shore of Loch Ness. His interruption, midway, due to a trip to Paris, proved fateful. It is said he was never the same again. His life spiraled into a series of disasters, and the house remained cursed. But why would anyone take such a risk? The answer is power that defies human comprehension. Successfully completing the ritual allows not only communication with the guardian angel, but also dominion over 12 chief and 4,000 subordinate demons. These entities are bound to fulfill the magician's will, and here lies another problem. You gain not just keys to magic, you gain the ability to reshape reality itself. Legends claim that those who completed the ritual to the end acquired the power to influence events and alter fates, but they lost part of themselves in return. Because returning from that world, where you feel the pulse of the cosmos and see the threads connecting all things, is impossible. The most terrifying aspect is not the demonology of the book, it is the impact it has on your mind. The ritual teaches you to see more than one can bear. You begin to feel the presence of other worlds even where others see only walls. You feel how reality shifts, where the thin line between yourself and the outside world dissolves. And at some point, the mind begins to question, are you still human, or merely a conduit for those who stand behind the veil? The Book of Abramelin is not just a text, it is a trial for the soul, whose body remains in our world while its consciousness wanders the dreams of hell. And here's the crucial part in this game. There are no second chances, every choice is final. Are you ready to step into this ritual and never be the same again? In the shadowed corridors of history, where truth and legend intertwine, stands the enigmatic figure of Abraham von Worms, a 15th century scholar, traveler, and mystic who vanished into the obscurity of forbidden knowledge, leaving behind one of the most unsettling grimoires ever recorded. The Book of Abramelin was not simply written, it was unearthed. According to whispers passed down through centuries, Abraham stumbled upon this sinister manuscript deep within the deserts of Egypt, far from the prying eyes of the civilized world. There, amidst ancient ruins buried in the sands, he encountered a hermit who was more than just a man, a shadow cloaked in the wisdom of forgotten epochs. This mysterious figure, whom Abraham later identified as Abramelin the Mage, handed him secrets that humanity was never meant to wield. The journey of Abraham von Worms was no ordinary pilgrimage. As a respected scholar from Worms, Germany, he initially sought knowledge from the courts and libraries of Europe, but something pulled him further, an insatiable hunger to pierce the veil that shields our world from the hidden realms beyond. Egypt, with its millennia-old tombs and temples, whispered promises of power older than time itself. It was here, in the crumbling silence of abandoned sanctuaries, that Abraham found the ritualistic fragments that would soon be compiled into the book we know today. What he brought back was more than parchment and ink. It was a map of peril. Within the worn pages of the grimoire, the rituals and instructions seemed to possess a consciousness of their own. Some accounts speak of strange occurrences during the transcription of the text, candles extinguishing themselves, shadows lengthening without source, and cryptic symbols rearranging when left unattended. Even the very act of reading these words out loud, some claim, could bend the fabric of one's reality. Abraham himself cautioned readers that those who dared to proceed must commit wholly to the process, lest they invite disaster upon themselves and their lineage. The Book of Abramelin describes a system that predates any Western magical tradition. While the Christianized Europe of the 1400s was burning heretics and condemning witchcraft, Abraham von Worms preserved a ritual that felt as though it belonged to a time before gods. The instructions carry the scent of something Egyptian, but not entirely, as if they were older, whispered beneath the sands long before the first pharaohs ascended their thrones. What sets the Book of Abramelin apart from other grimoires of its time is its single-minded obsession, achieving communion with the holy guardian angel. Yet, this path is laced with snares. Before the angel can be summoned, the practitioner must confront and bind a legion of demonic forces, entities that lurk at the frayed edges of human consciousness. The names and seals of these spirits are listed, not as suggestions, but as mandatory adversaries in the ritual. It is said that failing to master them results in the practitioner being swallowed by madness, obsession, or worse, becoming a vessel for something else entirely. Unlike the structured ceremonial magic of the grimoires that followed in later centuries, the rituals of Abramelin are personal, dangerous, and transformative. They demand isolation, mental and physical purity, and a devotion so complete that most who attempted the rite either faltered halfway or vanished into obscurity. Some historical footnotes tell of families cursed across generations, because an ancestor dared to begin the rite, but never completed it. The instructions within the grimoire are as precise as they are chilling. Abraham warns of dire consequences for breaking the sequence or skipping steps. Those who attempt shortcuts often encounter false angels, entities that mimic the holy guardian angel, but serve only to lead the practitioner astray. Ancient marginalia, found in preserved copies of the text, describe practitioners plagued by sleepless nights, haunted by visions of serpentine figures slithering in the corners of their homes, or by cryptic voices urging them deeper into obsession. Yet, despite the danger, the allure of forbidden knowledge persisted. Over the centuries, the book became a whispered legend among occult circles, from the secretive alchemists of the Renaissance to the Kabbalistic lodges of the 18th century. Its influence seeped through locked doors and sealed libraries. Even now, it is believed that the Book of Abramelin has found a home in private collections and esoteric archives, waiting for the next seeker willing to gamble their sanity for transcendence. Abraham von Worms did not leave behind tales of grand victories or promises of glory. Instead, his writings drip with caution. He confesses that what he learned changed him irrevocably, pulling him away from the familiar world of men into something colder, stranger, and infinitely more dangerous. What was it that Abraham truly found in Egypt? Was it a sacred path to enlightenment, or a trap set by ancient forces? The line between salvation and damnation thins with every page turned. There are grimoires filled with spells, symbols, and scattered rituals, but the Book of Abramelin is unlike any of them. It offers only one ritual, one path, one binding contract between the practitioner and the unknown. And this contract is not written in ink, but in blood, sacrifice, and the gradual unraveling of the human mind. Unlike most magical tomes that allow the reader to cherry-pick among charms and enchantments, this book grants no shortcuts, no easy rewards. Instead, it lays before you a single, terrifying challenge, a pact that demands not fragments of your attention, but your entire soul. Those who have dared to open its pages speak of an oppressive silence, as if something unseen leans over your shoulder, reading with you. The ritual begins the moment the book is truly read, as if its words do not merely describe, but invoke the ancient forces veiled between worlds. The instructions are simple in appearance, but hide layers of complexity designed to dismantle the initiate from within. It starts with preparation, long arduous months of purification, prayer, and solitude. But these acts are not simple abstinences from the world. They are the forging of a new reality, where the practitioner will exist between dimensions. The practitioner must withdraw from society, retreat into isolation, and construct a temple. This is not merely a physical space, but a crucible of will and intention. Every inch of the space must be sanctified. Every corner becomes a mirror, reflecting the practitioner's own subconscious. As the months pass, normal life fades like a distant memory. The outer world grows dimmer, while inner visions intensify. Dreams become vivid, bleeding into waking reality. Unseen presences move within the temple's shadows, testing resolve. Some describe figures standing at doorways, shapes pressed against windows, watching silently as the ritualist prays and fasts. The Abramelin ritual demands daily prayers, beginning before sunrise and continuing until nightfall. Each prayer is aimed not outward, but inward, calling forth the layers of self that have been buried under fear, ignorance, and habit. But as the self is peeled back, so too are the veils separating this world from the next. Reports from those who have attempted the operation speak of strange auditory phenomena, whispers, laughter, guttural growls, and soft cries echoing from unseen mouths. Mirrors distort reflections, objects shift imperceptibly from their original positions, and the sensation of being watched becomes unbearable. By the midpoint of the ritual, the practitioner is said to encounter the first threshold. It is not marked by grandeur or revelation, but by the arrival of opposition. The demonic forces, sensing weakness or pride, begin to encroach. In the Abramelin tradition, these entities are not mere allegories, but conscious beings lurking just beyond the veil. Their presence manifests as psychological attacks, hallucinations, unrelenting doubt, and an overwhelming urge to abandon the process. The practitioner must resist, for surrender invites chaos into their life. There are whispered accounts of those who broke the operation prematurely and were never the same, some suffering breakdowns, others disappearing into obscurity altogether. If the practitioner endures, a second transformation begins. The self unravels further as the line between the ritualist and the ritual blurs. Time becomes disjointed. Days stretch and collapse unpredictably. Hours pass like minutes, or moments seem frozen for eternity. This distortion is not accidental, but a byproduct of crossing from mundane existence into the liminal space between realities. Here, the practitioner begins binding the 12 kings and dukes of hell, a symbolic and literal act of dominance over chaotic forces within and beyond. The ritual reaches its climax with the invocation of the holy guardian angel. Descriptions of this entity vary widely. For some it is a being of immense light, while others speak of a whispering presence behind the fabric of existence itself. The angel offers the ultimate gift, true knowledge of self and mastery over the hidden forces of the universe, but it comes at a cost. For in the very moment the angel is reached, the practitioner realizes that they have been permanently altered. Reality no longer fits them as it once did. The world becomes alien. Everything previously familiar now feels slightly off, as if the practitioner has stepped half a foot outside the bounds of this dimension. Accounts of success are rare, and those who claim to have completed the ritual often disappear from public life. Some retreat into lifelong solitude, while others vanish under mysterious circumstances. The most chilling reports are those of individuals who continue to see or hear the entities they were meant to bind, even after supposedly mastering them. As if the demonic legions once acknowledged, forever linger at the edge of perception. There are darker tales still, stories of those who, emboldened by their new power, attempted to bend reality for personal gain. These individuals often met grim fates, unexplained deaths, sudden insanity, or terrifying strokes of misfortune that rippled outward to harm loved ones and entire communities. Such stories are whispered among modern occultists as grim reminders of the dangers inherent in making a pact with unknown forces. And yet, the allure persists. The Book of Abramelin continues to be studied, hidden in private collections, or passed quietly among secretive esoteric circles. For those who hunger for more than mere mortal existence, the temptation to step onto this razor-thin path remains irresistible. After all, beyond fear, beyond pain, lies the forbidden light, the terrible, beautiful truth that this grimoire promises. But one must always remember, this ritual is not simply a calling of angels or a battle with demons. It is the dissolution of self, a pact with powers that were ancient when humanity still crawled through the dust, a conversation with the void itself, asking it to whisper back, and once the void answers, it may never stop. In the dim glow of a solitary candle, the pages of the Book of Abramelin whisper secrets that have beckoned mystics and seekers for centuries. This ancient grimoire, attributed to Abraham of Worms, a 15th century Jewish scholar, is not merely a collection of spells, but a detailed guide to a profound spiritual metamorphosis. Central to its teachings is the promise of communion with one's holy guardian angel, a celestial being believed to hold the keys to divine wisdom and supernatural abilities. This chapter delves into the enigmatic ritual that purports to unlock this sacred connection, a journey fraught with mystery, peril, and the potential to alter the very fabric of reality. The ritual, often referred to as the Abramelin operation, is an arduous undertaking, demanding unwavering dedication and an unyielding spirit, spanning a period of 6 to 18 months, depending on the manuscript consulted. The process is meticulously structured to purify the practitioner and prepare them for the ultimate encounter with their celestial counterpart. The operation is divided into distinct phases, each with specific requirements and escalating intensity. In the initial phase, the aspirant must retreat from the distractions of daily life, embracing solitude and reflection. This seclusion is not merely physical, but extends to the mind and spirit, necessitating a withdrawal from worldly concerns and a focus on the divine. Daily prayers become the cornerstone of this period, recited at dawn, noon, and dusk, each invocation drawing the practitioner closer to the spiritual realm. Fasting and abstinence from carnal pleasures are mandated, serving to cleanse the body and fortify the will against earthly temptations. As the months progress, the regimen intensifies. The practitioner constructs a sacred space, a consecrated altar, adorned with specific symbols and tools as prescribed by the grimoire. This altar becomes the nexus between the mortal and the divine, a portal through which the holy guardian angel may manifest. The aspirant must also craft a set of holy garments, each stitch imbued with intent and reverence, symbolizing the shedding of the old self and the emergence of a purified vessel, ready to receive divine knowledge. The psychological toll during this period is immense. Isolated and subjected to rigorous discipline, practitioners often report vivid dreams and visions, blurring the lines between reality and the ethereal. Some accounts speak of disembodied whispers echoing in the silence, shadows that dance without light, and an overwhelming sense of being watched by unseen eyes. These phenomena are considered both tests and omens, challenging the aspirant's resolve and signaling the thinning veil between the physical world and the spiritual plane. The culmination of the operation is the invocation of the holy guardian angel. This moment is not merely a summoning, but a profound union, wherein the angel imparts esoteric wisdom and grants the practitioner the authority to command lesser spirits. The grimoire details that this communion bestows the knowledge of one's true purpose and the power to perform miracles, heal the sick, and influence the natural world. However, this enlightenment comes with a grave responsibility, as misuse of these gifts or deviation from the righteous path can lead to dire consequences. Historical accounts of those who have undertaken the Abramelin operation are as varied as they are enigmatic. Some claim to have emerged transformed, endowed with abilities that defy explanation, and a profound understanding of the cosmos. Others warn of madness, misfortune, and encounters with malevolent entities that sought to deceive and destroy. The infamous occultist Aleister Crowley is known to have attempted the ritual but was interrupted, leading to a series of personal calamities that he attributed to the incomplete operation. Skeptics argue that the ritual's demands extended isolation, severe fasting, and intense psychological focus can induce hallucinations and psychosis, explaining the reported visions and experiences. Yet for adherents, these very challenges are the crucible through which the soul is purified and the true nature of reality is unveiled. The allure of contacting one's holy guardian angel lies not only in the promise of supernatural abilities, but in the profound spiritual fulfillment it offers. In a world rife with uncertainty and suffering, the notion of a personal celestial guide provides solace and purpose. The angel represents the highest aspect of the self, a divine mirror, reflecting one's potential for enlightenment and unity with the cosmos. However, the path to this exalted state is perilous. The The grimoire warns of deceptive spirits that masquerade as the holy guardian angel, leading the unwary astray. To safeguard against such dangers, the practitioner must cultivate unwavering faith, discernment, and humility. Any trace of arrogance or doubt can open the door to forces that seek to corrupt and consume. The Book of Abramelin stands as a testament to the timeless human quest for transcendence and the inherent risks of seeking knowledge beyond the mortal ken. It challenges the seeker to confront their deepest fears, desires, and the very essence of their being. The ritual is not merely a means to an end, but a transformative journey that reshapes the soul, forging a bond with the divine that transcends the boundaries of life and death. In conclusion, the promise of contacting one's holy guardian angel as detailed in the Book of Abramelin is a profound undertaking that intertwines mysticism, psychology, and spirituality. It offers the aspirant a path to unparalleled wisdom and power, but demands a price that few are willing to pay. The ritual's complexity and the mysteries surrounding its outcomes continue to captivate and caution those who dare to seek the hidden truths of existence. To stand at the threshold of the unknown, to gaze into the abyss where the holy guardian angel awaits, is to willingly set foot on a path from which there is no return. The Book of Abramelin promises divine wisdom and supernatural mastery, but the cost is nothing less than the slow and deliberate sacrifice of your entire being. It is not gold or blood that this ritual demands. It is your very soul, piece by piece, as you strip away all human comfort and certainty until only your raw spirit remains. The true terror of this ancient rite is not the fear of demons or dark apparitions, but the agonizing dissolution of self. The practitioner is commanded to undertake brutal acts of self-denial that few mortals could endure. The process begins gently, almost deceptively, with simple abstentions from meat, wine, and pleasures of the flesh. Yet, as the months pass, this regimen escalates into something that begins to feel like a slow death. Hunger gnaws at the stomach, sleepless nights warp perception. Days are spent in endless prayer, chanting invocations that echo into empty rooms like cries into a bottomless well. The walls of the temple, meant to be sanctuaries, close in like a tomb. Outside, the world carries on in blissful ignorance, while within, the practitioner becomes a stranger to everything they once knew. The simple sounds of birdsong or rain against the window begin to sound alien, disconnected from a reality that now feels distant and unreal. Isolation seeps into the bones. The practitioner is forbidden from speaking to anyone, forbidden from the simple human contact that anchors sanity. It is in this oppressive silence that the mind begins to fracture. Faces of loved ones morph into shadows behind closed eyelids, distorted by hunger and solitude. Whispered voices slither through the silence. Some beckon with comforting lies, others threaten with cruel promises. These voices are the first tests, probing for weaknesses, for hidden fears, for doubts buried deep beneath the surface. And then come the visions. At first they are fleeting, a shape darting past the corner of the eye, a flicker of movement behind the altar. But soon they grow bold. The practitioner begins to see fully formed figures in the room, some cloaked in light, others dripping with malice. These beings do not announce their intentions. Some merely stare with hollow eyes, others speak riddles that unravel the practitioner's grip on logic and reason. Dreams become battlegrounds, where serpents of smoke coil around the mind, whispering secrets too terrible to comprehend. The grimoire warns that these are no mere hallucinations. The practitioner is not alone. The very forces of chaos, the demonic legions ruled by the kings and dukes of the infernal realm, take notice. They test, they tempt, and when that fails, they torment. For every step closer, the practitioner moves toward their angelic goal. These dark forces push back with fury, Some rituals demand that the practitioner perform exorcisms, not on haunted places, but on themselves, driving out parasitic entities that feed on fear and despair. Physical ailments manifest without warning, strange sores that refuse to heal, tremors in the hands that turn prayers into frantic scribbles, or sudden fevers that leave the practitioner delirious for days. Ancient texts speak of blood appearing on the altar with no wound to explain it, or the inexplicable scent of sulfur filling the sacred space, choking the air. The practitioner must endure all without faltering, for surrender or deviation at this stage opens doors to horrors that cannot be shut. But perhaps the greatest trial lies not in the physical or the spectral, but in the confrontation with one's own shadow. Stripped of distraction, laid bare in the silence, the practitioner faces their innermost fears, traumas, and hidden sins. Regret, anger, and shame rise like specters, demanding acknowledgement, threatening to shatter the fragile resolve holding the ritualist together. The temple becomes a mirror, reflecting back a distorted version of the self, and the practitioner must either integrate these shadows, or risk being consumed by them. And even this is not enough, for once the practitioner has weathered the storm of demons within and without, they must demonstrate absolute humility. The ritual demands the surrender of pride, the acceptance of one's insignificance before the vast machinery of the divine and infernal realms. Many fail at this final gate, undone not by external threats, but by the flicker of arrogance that dares to assume mastery over forces far older and crueler than humanity. The few who press forward reach a breaking point, a sacred death of the self. The grimoire calls it a purification, a dissolution of the ego, where all attachments to the material world, personal identity, and mortal concerns are burned away like impurities in a flame. Those who survive this inner immolation emerge transformed, no longer fully part of this world. Their gaze carries a weight, their silence vibrates with the echoes of realms unseen. But the question lingers, at what cost? The practitioner who stands on the other side of this harrowing ordeal is no longer the same person who began the ritual. Their humanity, their innocence, and perhaps even their sanity have been left behind. Some speak of practitioners who, after completing the rite, could no longer find joy in simple pleasures, their perception forever altered by the truths glimpsed during the ordeal. Others describe them as radiant, yet hollow, as if something vital has been traded away for the power they now wield. And yet, despite these warnings, the allure is undeniable. To stand before the holy guardian angel is to hold dominion over the very forces that govern fate and chaos. It is to be granted knowledge that can reshape worlds, heal incurable wounds, or bend the will of spirits. But every light casts a shadow, and behind the angel waits the abyss, watching with patient hunger. So the practitioner must ask themselves, is the price of salvation worth the endless trials, the torment, and the slow unraveling of the soul? To seek the divine in the book of Abramelin is to walk willingly into a storm from which few emerge whole. And for those who do, the question remains, have they truly won, or have they become something else entirely, forever marked by the forces they dared to command? The temple remains, silent and waiting. The ritual calls, the abyss listens. To stand at the threshold of the unknown, to gaze into the abyss where the holy guardian angel awaits, is to willingly set foot on a path from which there is no return. The book of Abramelin promises divine wisdom and supernatural mastery, but the cost is nothing less than the slow and deliberate sacrifice of your entire being. It is not gold or blood that this ritual demands. It is your very soul, piece by piece, as you strip away all human comfort and certainty until only your raw spirit remains. The true terror of this ancient rite is not the fear of demons or dark apparitions, but the agonizing dissolution of self. The practitioner is commanded to undertake brutal acts of self-denial that few mortals could endure. The process begins gently, almost deceptively, with simple abstentions from meat, wine, and pleasures of the flesh. Yet, as the months pass, this regimen escalates into something that begins to feel like a slow death. Hunger gnaws at the stomach, sleepless nights warp perception, days are spent in endless prayer, chanting invocations that echo into empty rooms like cries into a bottomless well. The walls of the temple, meant to be sanctuaries, close in like a tomb. Outside, the world carries on in blissful ignorance, while within, the practitioner becomes a stranger to everything they once knew. The simple sounds of birdsong or rain against the window begin to sound alien, disconnected from a reality that now feels distant and unreal. Isolation seeps into the bones. The practitioner is forbidden from speaking to anyone, forbidden from the simple human contact that anchors sanity. It is in this oppressive silence that the mind begins to fracture. Faces of loved ones morph into shadows behind closed eyelids, distorted by hunger and solitude. Whispered voices slither through the silence. Some beckon with comforting lies, others threaten with cruel promises. These voices are the first tests, probing for weaknesses, for hidden fears, for doubts buried deep beneath the surface. And then come the visions. At first, they are fleeting, a shape darting past the corner of the eye, a flicker of movement behind the altar, but soon they grow bold. The practitioner begins to see fully formed figures in the room, some cloaked in light, others dripping with malice. These beings do not announce their intentions. Some merely stare with hollow eyes, others speak riddles that unravel the practitioner's grip on logic and reason. Dreams become battlegrounds, where serpents of smoke coil around the mind, whispering secrets too terrible to comprehend. The grimoire warns that these are no mere hallucinations. The practitioner is not alone. The very forces of chaos, the demonic legions ruled by the kings and dukes of the infernal realm, take notice. They test, they tempt, and when that fails, they torment. For every step closer, the practitioner moves toward their angelic goal. These dark forces push back with fury. Some rituals demand that the practitioner perform exorcisms, not on haunted places, but on themselves, driving out parasitic entities that feed on fear and despair. Physical ailments manifest without warning, strange sores that refuse to heal, tremors in the hands that turn prayers into frantic scribbles, or sudden fevers that leave the practitioner delirious for days. Ancient texts speak of blood appearing on the altar with no wound to explain it, or the inexplicable scent of sulfur filling the sacred space, choking the air. The practitioner must endure all without faltering, for surrender or deviation at this stage opens doors to horrors that cannot be shut. But perhaps the greatest trial lies not in the physical or the spectral, but in the confrontation with one's own shadow. Stripped of distraction, laid bare, in the silence, the practitioner faces their innermost fears, traumas, and hidden sins. Regret, anger, and shame rise like specters, demanding acknowledgement, threatening to shatter the fragile resolve holding the ritualist together. The temple becomes a mirror, reflecting back a distorted version of the self, and the practitioner must either integrate these shadows or risk being consumed by them. And even this is not enough, for once the practitioner has weathered the storm of demons within and without, they must demonstrate absolute humility. The ritual demands the surrender of pride, the acceptance of one's insignificance before the vast machinery of the divine and infernal realms. Many fail at this final gate, undone not by external threats, but by the flicker of arrogance that dares to assume mastery over forces far older and crueler than humanity. The few who press forward reach a breaking point, a sacred death of the self. The grimoire calls it a purification, a dissolution of the ego, where all attachments to the material world, personal identity, and mortal concerns are burned away like impurities in a flame. Those who survive this inner immolation emerge transformed, no longer fully part of this world. Their gaze carries a weight Their silence vibrates with the echoes of realms unseen. But the question lingers, at what cost? The practitioner who stands on the other side of this harrowing ordeal is no longer the same person who began the ritual. Their humanity, their innocence, and perhaps even their sanity have been left behind. Some speak of practitioners who, after completing the rite, could no longer find joy in simple pleasures, their perception forever altered by the truths glimpsed during the ordeal. Others describe them as radiant, yet hollow, as if something vital has been traded away for the power they now wield. And yet, despite these warnings, the allure is undeniable. To stand before the holy guardian angel is to hold dominion over the very forces that govern fate and chaos. It is to be granted knowledge that can reshape worlds, heal incurable wounds, or bend the will of spirits. But every light casts a shadow, and behind the angel waits the abyss, watching with patient hunger. So the practitioner must ask themselves, is the price of salvation worth the endless trials, the torment, and the slow unraveling of the soul? To seek the divine in the Book of Abramelin is to walk willingly into a storm from which few emerge whole. And for those who do, the question remains, have they truly won, or have they become something else entirely, forever marked by the forces they dared to command? The temple remains, silent and waiting. The ritual calls, the abyss listens. To begin the ritual of the Abramelin is to willingly walk into a labyrinth where every step forward demands you leave pieces of yourself behind. The first and most formidable wall standing before the practitioner is not just the daunting length of the 18-month isolation, but the relentless pursuit of something even more intangible, absolute spiritual purity. It is a gate that no key can unlock, and no trick can bypass. The practitioner must cleanse themselves to such an extent that even their own thoughts become suspect. From the moment they commit to the ritual, they are watched, not only by the unseen forces that surround them, but by the judgmental eye of their own conscience, sharpened into a blade by the sacred text. Spiritual purity is no vague suggestion. The book is precise. The practitioner must abandon all deceit, malice, anger, and vice. Every flicker of envy, every stray lustful thought, every bitterness must be excised. The grimoire warns in no uncertain terms, should impurity linger within, the ritual will not only fail, but might invite horrors that no earthly prayer can ward off. And so, each day begins with a confession, not to a priest, but to the silence itself. Before every prayer, the practitioner must inventory their flaws, stripping away layers of ego and pretense, until the raw nerve of their soul is exposed. But the human mind is a master of self-deception. The longer one stares into the mirror of spiritual examination, the more the reflection begins to shift. What starts as an attempt to purify the heart becomes a descent into obsession. The practitioner starts hearing whispers in the quiet hours, memories of old arguments, glimpses of betrayals long past, fragments of anger once buried. The book offers no comfort for this suffering. It tells the practitioner, endure the unraveling of your psyche, until there is nothing left but naked sincerity. Outside, the world continues, unaware. Inside the temple, time collapses. The practitioner watches themselves rot from within, peeling away sins and impurities, like scabs, knowing that no slip is permitted. The grimoire demands 6 specific prayers daily, but it is the constant, gnawing pressure of self-monitoring that drives most to the brink. How does one live for 18 months without a single lie, without a single selfish act, without a single impure desire? And yet, there are stories, terrifying stories, of those who tried and failed. One speaks of a man in 17th century Prague, who upon realizing on the 3rd month that he had harbored resentment against his brother, sealed himself within his cell, refusing to break the sacred silence, but also refusing food and water. When they found him weeks later, his withered body was still kneeling before the altar, eyes wide open, mouth twisted in a silent scream. The book also speaks cryptically of guardians, forces that will come to test the purity of the practitioner's soul. Some describe these encounters as spectral judges appearing in the dead of night, their forms shifting between angelic beauty and demonic terror, depending on the practitioner's hidden flaws. These entities, it is said, will gaze into the practitioner's heart and reflect back the exact corruption that still lingers. If pride festers within, they will mock and humiliate. If lust simmers beneath the prayers, they will seduce with illusions so vivid that resistance feels impossible. The practitioner, by now physically frail and mentally frayed, must meet these trials head-on. Some claim that resisting these spiritual predators is not a matter of force, but surrender, the surrender of ego, the surrender of control. To emerge unscathed, one must let go of the very impulse to fight, allowing these horrors to pass through them like smoke. Yet the terror is not limited to spectral judges. The most dangerous adversary is the practitioner's own inner demon. As they push deeper into self-examination, many report encountering a presence that seems to be a twisted version of themselves, a dark mirror. This doppelganger does not arrive with horns or claws, but with cold logic, whispering poisonous truths. It will remind the practitioner of every weakness, every sin, every regret. It will ask, who are you to claim purity when you are rotten to your core? The Book of Abramelin leaves this struggle intentionally ambiguous. It gives no instruction on defeating the shadow self. It merely warns, fail here, and you will never see the angel. Some practitioners emerged from the temple after months of battle with their reflection, eyes sunken and haunted, unable to speak of what they saw. Others never returned at all, their fate left to grim speculation. The commitment to purity extends beyond the mind and spirit. The ritual dictates a rigorous daily cleansing of the physical body. 2. Baths drawn at dawn and sunset, garments washed by hand, the altar scrubbed until knuckles bleed. Even the most meticulous practitioner finds themselves caught in a paradox as their body weakens from fasting and insomnia. The demand for perfection only grows more impossible. Hunger and weariness amplify the pressure. As energy wanes, so too does the resolve. The practitioner begins to hear their name called from empty corners, see ghostly lights flicker at the edge of the sacred space. Objects shift ever so slightly overnight. Some awaken to find their prayer books rearranged, candles melted into grotesque forms. The book offers only one explanation: the forces beyond the veil are watching. Some urge the practitioner onward, others seek to push them into madness. The deeper into the months the practitioner journeys, the more they cease to resemble the person who entered the temple. Their voice, once steady and clear, cracks under the weight of ceaseless prayer. Their face, once human, now carries the hollowed-out features of a revenant. And yet, they press forward, convinced that if they can just hold the thread of purity for a few more weeks, salvation will be within reach. But salvation itself becomes a blur. The idea of the holy guardian angel, once a beacon of hope, now hovers like a distant star, cold, indifferent, unreachable. The practitioner begins to wonder, is the angel even real? Or is this all a carefully constructed maze, designed to strip them of everything? Despite this gnawing doubt, they continue, knowing that failure is worse than uncertainty. To quit the ritual now would mean spiritual ruin. The book makes it clear, those who abandon the path may become marked, followed for the rest of their days, by those invisible forces who once tested them. And so, the practitioner persists. Every flicker of impure thought is met with harsh self-judgment. Every stray desire is crushed beneath the iron will forged through months of agony. And somewhere, just beyond the veil of perception, the guardian waits, watching, judging, deciding if this hollowed-out vessel is worthy of its presence. The temple grows colder, the silence deepens, the practitioner trembles on the knife's edge between madness and transcendence. They are closer than ever to breaking through to the final stage, but the wall of purity must hold, or everything will collapse. And with every beat of their fragile heart, the question echoes louder: when the angel comes, will it bring light, or reveal something far darker? The practitioner wakes before the first light touches the sky, the silence of the pre-dawn hours pressing heavily upon the chamber. The air is dense, almost suffocating, as if the room itself is aware of the weight of the task ahead. This is no ordinary awakening. It is the beginning of another day in a cycle where each moment is designed to tear away layers of self until there is nothing left but a purified vessel. Each day is not simply a test of endurance, but of absolute willpower, a constant battle against temptation, fatigue, and creeping madness. The morning prayer is whispered in near darkness, the practitioner kneeling before the modest altar illuminated by the flicker of a single flame. The words are ancient, heavy with symbolism, and every syllable demands full attention. The mind cannot wander here. Distraction is the enemy. The prayer is more than an offering. It is a shield, a barrier against the corrosive thoughts that claw at the edges of the mind. As the final word leaves their lips, there is no relief, only the realization that this is but the first step in an endless labyrinth of the spirit. After prayer comes meditation, a grueling process of silencing the internal noise that modern life encourages. The practitioner sits perfectly still, spine rigid, eyes shut tight. The silence is deceptive. It amplifies every internal whisper, forgotten regrets, long-buried desires, and intrusive doubts rise like specters, forcing the practitioner to confront them head-on. The grimoire warns that these visions are not random. They are manifestations of impurities that must be exorcised through sheer force of will. For hours, the practitioner wrestles with themselves, peeling away psychological scabs that never fully healed. But there is no time to linger in pain. As the sun reaches its peak, another prayer must be recited. Fatigue by now gnaws at the practitioner's bones, but the words must be spoken with clarity and intent. The midday heat, combined with fasting and isolation, creates a hallucinatory effect. Shadows seem to writhe along the walls, and faint whispers echo from unseen corners. The practitioner knows these are tests, phantoms conjured by the mind, or perhaps something older, darker, lurking just beyond the veil of sight. Afternoons are a brutal exercise in self-discipline. The practitioner must recite invocations while simultaneously maintaining perfect purity of thought. A single impure image, a flash of anger, or a fleeting lustful idea is enough to undo weeks of effort. The grimoire insists that every intention behind each word be as clean as the air before a storm. Should they fail, the practitioner must start again, not from the prayer, but from the very beginning of their sacred path. The sun begins to set, and with it comes the evening ritual. The practitioner's body trembles now, weakened by relentless fasting and physical exhaustion, but there can be no rest. They are required to write daily reflections, analyzing every emotion, every thought that surfaced during the day. This is not a diary, but a forensic examination of the soul. Where did pride take root? When did jealousy flicker behind the eyes? The grimoire leaves no room for ambiguity. Clarity is survival. Only through brutally honest self-analysis can the practitioner begin to shed the ego and draw closer to the divine. Night falls, but the ordeal is far from over. Meditation resumes, this time deeper and more dangerous. In this liminal space between wakefulness and sleep, many practitioners have reported visions, figures standing at the foot of the bed, walls melting into incomprehensible symbols, or whispers urging them to abandon the ritual. These are said to be guardians of the threshold, testing the practitioner's resolve. Some have described the appearance of black-robed entities whose faces are hidden, offering tempting bargains in exchange for abandoning the path. The grimoire is clear: resist, no matter how persuasive or terrifying the visions become. Each passing day strips more humanity from the practitioner. Hunger sharpens the senses, while sleep deprivation distorts time itself. Hours stretch and collapse. Prayers blend into one another until the practitioner cannot distinguish between past and present. Some claim that the veil between the physical and spiritual worlds thins, and they begin hearing the angel's voice in the stillness. Others warn that these voices are deceptions, designed to mislead and entrap. The repetition of the prayers is a sacred rhythm that syncs the practitioner's very heartbeat with something beyond comprehension. It is said that over time, the words themselves gain power, vibrating through the bones and resonating within the walls. Strange phenomena are often reported at this stage: candles extinguishing themselves, cold drafts passing through sealed rooms, or the subtle scent of incense where none has been burned. Beyond the personal battle, there is the grueling monotony of the physical environment. The practitioner is confined to a sanctified space, barred from interaction with the outside world. The chamber becomes both sanctuary and prison. Its stillness is deafening, forcing the practitioner to confront their innermost self without the distractions of daily life. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months. The grimoire demands unyielding patience, and only those capable of mastering the silence are said to advance. Every action, no matter how small, is governed by the sacred instructions. Meals, when permitted, are ritualistic acts themselves, eaten in solitude and silence. Even the washing of hands, the folding of garments, and the maintenance of the altar are done with meditative focus. The practitioner is to become a living embodiment of ritual, where every breath is a prayer, and every thought a sacrifice. Eventually, the practitioner begins to enter altered states of consciousness. Prolonged deprivation and hyper-focus on the divine create cracks in the perception of reality. Time ceases to be linear. Some have recounted vivid dreams, where they converse with radiant beings, who reveal hidden knowledge, while others have described terrifying journeys into realms of darkness, where faceless figures whisper secrets forbidden to the uninitiated. Yet despite all this, the practitioner must persist. Each day builds upon the last, and failure means starting from nothing. The fear of regression becomes a specter that haunts them. A forgotten prayer, a moment of pride, or a lapse into anger is enough to undo months of agony. The grimoire warns that the forces watching them, both angelic and demonic, are merciless, and that shortcuts lead to ruin. The deeper into the ritual the practitioner travels, the more the room itself seems to change. Walls appear to breathe, the air thickens, and the weight of unseen eyes becomes palpable. Some claim that by this stage, the practitioner begins to sense the approach of their holy guardian angel. Others argue it is a psychological hallucination, the mind breaking under the relentless pressure. Regardless, few reach this point without scars, physical, mental, or spiritual. And so, the practitioner kneels one more time before the altar, whispering prayers with cracked lips and tear-stained cheeks. There is no guarantee of success, no promise that the angel will appear, but the ritual is merciless. It demands everything. Each day tests the practitioner's will as much as their faith, grinding them down into dust and remolding them into something beyond human. Yet in the dark silence of the chamber, amid exhaustion and despair, hope flickers, a hope that the angel, should it come, will bring light, or perhaps reveal a truth too terrible to endure. In the shadowed sanctum of the practitioner's chamber, where time is measured not by the sun's arc, but by the cadence of relentless prayers, the air grows thick with anticipation and dread. The Book of Abramelin is explicit in its warnings. Any deviation, any flaw in the execution of the ritual can open the gates to unfathomable darkness, unleashing predators, unseen yet palpably malevolent. The path to divine communion is a razor's edge, and one misstep can plunge the aspirant into an abyss from which there may be no return. 'Tis all. Each day begins in the cold stillness before dawn, the practitioner rising from a fitful sleep, haunted by fragmented visions. The chamber, sparsely furnished and devoid of distractions, serves as both sanctuary and crucible. The altar, meticulously arranged with consecrated tools, stands as the focal point of this sacred space. Here, precision is paramount. Each item must be placed according to the grimoire's exacting specifications, for even the slightest error in arrangement is said to disrupt the delicate balance between worlds. 'Tis all. The ritual commences with ablutions, a purification of the body that mirrors the intended cleansing of the soul. Water, blessed and imbued with protective prayers, is used to wash away the impurities of the physical form. This act is not merely symbolic, but is believed to fortify the practitioner against spiritual contamination. The grimoire emphasizes that negligence in this preparatory stage can leave one vulnerable to malevolent entities eager to exploit any weakness. 'Tis all. Clad in simple, unadorned robes, the practitioner approaches the altar, where the first of many daily prayers is to be recited. These invocations are intricate, woven with archaic language that demands unwavering concentration. The mind must be a fortress, impervious to wandering thoughts, for an unfocused mind is an open door to lurking dangers. The grimoire cautions that improper pronunciation or misplaced emphasis can act as a beacon to hostile forces, turning the sacred words into a siren call for the demonic. 'Tis all. As the hours stretch on, meditation becomes both a refuge and a battlefield. The practitioner's goal is to attain a state of inner silence, a void where the divine might plant the seeds of revelation. Yet, within this silence, the echoes of doubt and fear often resound the loudest. The grimoire warns that these intrusive thoughts can be more than mere distractions. They may be the whispers of entities seeking to derail the practitioner's progress. It is said that acknowledging these whispers, even inadvertently, grants them a foothold in the material realm. 'Tis all. The physical toll of the ritual is immense. Fasting weakens the body, and sleep is a fleeting luxury, often interrupted by nightmares that blur the line between dream and reality. In this weakened state, the practitioner's senses become unreliable. Shadows seem to move with intent, and faint, unidentifiable sounds become constant companions. The grimoire describes these phenomena as tests, illusions crafted by deceptive spirits to unseat the practitioner's resolve. However, there are accounts suggesting that some of these manifestations are not illusions, but the first signs of a breach between worlds, a breach caused by ritualistic errors. 'Tis all. Historical records tell of practitioners who, through seemingly minor mistakes, unleashed forces beyond their control. One such account involves a 17th century mystic who, in a moment of exhaustion, skipped a single line in his daily invocation. That night, his household was plagued by poltergeist activity so severe that it led to the abandonment of his estate. Another tale speaks of a monk who mispronounced a critical word during the ritual. He was found days later, muttering incoherently about eyes in the dark, and was thereafter confined to an asylum. 'Tis all. The grimoire is unflinching in its admonitions. The practitioners must maintain an unbroken chain of ritualistic perfection. Each prayer, each gesture, each thought must align flawlessly with the prescribed rites. The slightest deviation is not merely a failure, but an invitation to chaos. The text describes the cosmos as a tapestry of order, with the ritual serving as a thread that, if pulled incorrectly, can unravel the very fabric of reality, allowing the unspeakable to seep through. 'Tis all. The ritual progresses over the mandated months. The practitioner's isolation deepens. Cut off from human contact, they become acutely aware of another presence, subtle at first, manifesting as a prickling sensation on the skin or an inexplicable chill. The grimoire refers to these as the watchers, entities that observe from the periphery, drawn by the ritual's energy. Their intentions are ambiguous. They can be benevolent guides or malicious tricksters, and discerning their nature becomes yet another trial for the practitioner. To safeguard against these lurking dangers, the grimoire prescribes the use of protective sigils and talismans. These symbols, inscribed meticulously on parchment or etched into the very walls of the chamber, serve as barriers against intrusion. However, the creation of these protective devices is itself fraught with peril. An incorrectly drawn sigil or an improperly consecrated talisman can have the opposite effect, acting as a conduit for malevolent forces rather than a shield. Thus, the practitioners must approach this task with the utmost care, fully aware that their safety hinges on their precision. The culmination of the ritual, the invocation of the holy guardian angel, is the moment of greatest risk and reward. The practitioner stands at the threshold between the mortal realm and the divine, a juncture where the boundaries of existence blur. It is here that any lingering imperfections, any unnoticed mistakes, become glaring vulnerabilities. The grimoire warns that at this pivotal moment, the forces of darkness are most vigilant, eager to exploit any flaw to prevent the union of human and divine. In this climactic invocation, the practitioners must summon every ounce of their will, their faith, and their discipline. In the dimly lit chamber, where the air hung heavy with incense and whispered invocations, the practitioner had long since lost track of time. Days bled into nights, marked only by the relentless cycle of prayers and meditations prescribed by the grimoire. The pursuit of communion with the holy guardian angel had become an all-consuming endeavor, each ritualistic act a step deeper into the arcane. Yet, within the shadows that danced along the chamber walls, an insidious danger lurked. The grimoire's warnings were explicit. Any deviation, any lapse in concentration could invite entities beyond the practitioner's control. These malevolent forces, ever watchful, awaited the slightest misstep to breach the sanctified space. Yet, ritual progressed. The practitioner's senses heightened, attuned to the subtle shifts in the atmosphere. It was during one such meditation, deep in the stillness of the night, that an unsettling presence made itself known. A faint rustling, like dry leaves skittering across stone, echoed through the chamber. The practitioner's eyes snapped open, scanning the room, but nothing seemed amiss. Dismissing it as a trick of the mind, they resumed their contemplation. However, the disturbances persisted. Books would be found displaced, candles extinguished without a draught, and an oppressive chill settled over the room during the witching hours. Sleep, already a scarce commodity, became fraught with nightmares, visions of shadowy figures lurking just beyond the periphery of sight, their intentions unmistakably sinister. Yet, the practitioner recalled the grimoire's accounts of such phenomena. It spoke of the watchers, entities drawn to the energies of the ritual, neither benevolent nor entirely malevolent, but unpredictable and dangerous. Their intrusion was a testament to the practitioner's faltering focus, a reminder of the perilous path they tread. Determined to regain control, the practitioner intensified their purification rites. Salt lines were meticulously laid at thresholds, protective sigils inscribed on parchment and placed at the cardinal points of the chamber. Each action was executed with unwavering intent, fortifying the space against the encroaching darkness. Yet, despite these precautions, the manifestations grew bolder. Whispers unintelligible, yet filled with malice, seeped from the walls. Reflections in the scrying mirror showed not the practitioner's visage, but distorted, leering faces. The boundary between the material and the ethereal thinned, and the practitioner's grasp on reality wavered. Subordinate, in a moment of clarity, amidst the encroaching madness, the practitioner sought counsel from the grimoire, poring over its cryptic passages for guidance. It became evident that the entities were not mere intruders but reflections of the practitioner's inner turmoil. Doubt, fear, and unresolved guilt had manifested into these spectral forms, feeding off the very energies meant to summon the divine. Subordinate, to banish these entities, the practitioner had to confront their own shadows. Through intense self-reflection and unwavering discipline, they endeavored to purify not just the external space, but their inner sanctum. Each prayer became a cathartic release, each meditation a journey into the depths of their psyche. Subordinate, gradually, the disturbances waned, the oppressive atmosphere lightened, and the chamber regained its sanctity. The practitioner emerged from this ordeal, not only with a fortified spirit, but with a profound understanding of the delicate balance between light and darkness. The path to the holy guardian angel was fraught with peril, but it was a journey inward as much as it was a summoning of external forces. Subordinate, the grimoire's teachings had proven true. The greatest dangers lay not in the shadows that surrounded the practitioner, but in those that dwelled within. By confronting and integrating these aspects of themselves, they moved closer to the ultimate goal of the ritual, a union with the divine that encompassed the totality of their being. Thus, the practitioner continued their sacred work, each day a testament to resilience and the relentless pursuit of spiritual transcendence. The shadows remained, as they always would, but they no longer held dominion over the practitioner's journey. Instead, they served as reminders of the light that emerges when one dares to face the darkness within. They were in the dimly lit chamber, where shadows danced to the flicker of candlelight. The practitioner stood at the precipice of the final stage of the Abramelin operation, a grueling 18-month journey of purification, prayer, and unwavering devotion. The air was thick with anticipation, each breath a reminder of the monumental confrontation that lay ahead. The grimoire had meticulously prepared the practitioner for this moment, detailing the rituals and disciplines necessary to attain communion with the holy guardian angel. Yet, it also forewarned of a formidable trial, the encounter with the four princes of hell, Lucifer, Leviathan, Satan, and Belial. These infernal rulers, embodiments of the darkest aspects of existence, would seek to challenge and deter the practitioner from achieving divine union. Sewa, the chamber, had been sanctified through months of ritualistic cleansing, walls inscribed with protective sigils, floors sprinkled with consecrated salts, and the altar adorned with sacred symbols, all meticulously arranged to create a bastion against malevolent forces. The practitioner, clad in simple white robes, symbolizing purity, had abstained from worldly pleasures, adhering to a strict regimen of fasting and meditation. The isolation had been absolute, severing all ties with the mundane, to focus solely on the spiritual ascent. Sewa, as the final invocation commenced, the atmosphere grew heavy, the very air vibrating with an unseen energy. The practitioner's voice, steady yet resonant, recited the ancient words passed down through generations, a language forgotten by time, but potent in its invocation. Each syllable echoed through the chamber, weaving a tapestry of sound that bridged the mortal and the divine. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, and an oppressive darkness seeped into the room, extinguishing the candle flames. The practitioner stood firm, heart pounding but resolve unshaken. From the abyssal blackness emerged four distinct presences, each exuding an aura of overwhelming dread. The princes of hell had arrived, their forms indistinct yet undeniably powerful. Sewa, Lucifer, the light bearer, manifested first. His presence was paradoxically radiant, yet blinding, a searing brilliance that threatened to consume all it touched. He spoke with a voice like 1,000 whispers, offering knowledge and power beyond mortal comprehension. He tempted the practitioner with visions of grandeur, promising dominion over realms unseen. But the practitioner, recalling the grimoire's warnings, recognized the illusion and responded with unwavering faith, reciting prayers to dispel the deceit. Sewa next emerged, Leviathan, the serpent of the deep. The air grew thick with the scent of brine, and the distant sound of crashing waves filled the chamber. Leviathan's presence was suffocating, a crushing weight that sought to drown the practitioner's spirit in despair and doubt. He conjured images of endless oceans, symbolizing the abyss of uncertainty. Yet, the practitioner anchored their soul to the teachings of the grimoire, chanting hymns of hope and resilience, causing the watery illusions to recede. Sewa, 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 to appear. His form was a void, an absence that distorted reality around it. He challenged the practitioner's faith, sowing seeds of rebellion and questioning the very foundation of their beliefs. He presented paradoxes and riddles, aiming to entangle the mind in a web of confusion. However, the practitioner, steadfast in purpose, invoked the divine names inscribed within the grimoire, illuminating the darkness with truth and clarity, forcing Satan to withdraw. Sewa, finally, Belial, the worthless one, materialized. His presence was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet insidiously corrupting. He appealed to the practitioner's ego, whispering flattery and inciting pride. He suggested that the journey was a testament to the practitioner's own greatness, diverting glory from the divine. Sensing the peril of hubris, the practitioner humbled themselves, offering prayers of gratitude and acknowledging their role as a mere vessel for divine will. Belial's influence waned, unable to penetrate the armor of humility. Each confrontation tested the practitioner's resolve, faith, and adherence to the sacred teachings. The grimoire had not only prepared them for the rituals, but had also fortified their spirit against such trials. The encounters were not merely external battles, but internal reckonings with facets of the human condition: pride, despair, doubt, and ego. By overcoming these challenges, the practitioner purified their soul, aligning closer with the divine essence. As a vinyl prince dissipated into the ether, the oppressive darkness lifted, and a profound silence enveloped the chamber. The air felt lighter, imbued with a subtle fragrance, reminiscent of blooming flowers. A soft, radiant light emerged, coalescing into a form both awe-inspiring and comforting. The holy guardian angel had manifested, a being of transcendent beauty and grace. The practitioner's heart swelled with an indescribable joy, tears streaming down their face as they knelt in reverence. Sewa, the angel spoke not with words, but with a resonance that echoed within the very core of the practitioner's being. It imparted wisdom beyond the confines of mortal understanding, revealing truths about the cosmos, the self, and the intricate tapestry of existence. The practitioner's soul felt an expansion, a liberation from the shackles of ignorance and illusion. Teed's divine communion was the culmination of the arduous journey, a testament to the transformative power of unwavering faith and discipline. The practitioner had not only sought the angel, but had also confronted and integrated the shadow aspects represented by the infernal princes. This holistic integration was essential for true enlightenment, acknowledging the duality of existence and transcending it. So, in the days that followed, the practitioner emerged from seclusion, bearing aura of serenity and profound insight. The world, in the dimly lit chamber, where shadows flickered against ancient stone walls, the practitioner stood at the precipice of ultimate revelation. Months of rigorous discipline, isolation, and unwavering devotion had culminated in this moment, a communion with the holy guardian angel. The air was thick with anticipation, each breath a testament to the arduous journey undertaken. Yet, as the veil between the mortal and the divine thinned, an unexpected presence loomed, one that had been a subtle undercurrent throughout the practitioner's path. Lucifer, the light-bearer, now emerged with an allure more potent than ever before. So Lucifer's presence was not a sudden intrusion, but a gradual unveiling. Throughout history, Lucifer has been a complex figure, often misunderstood and reinterpreted across various traditions. In certain esoteric circles, he is seen not as the embodiment of evil, but as a symbol of enlightenment, individuality, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. This perspective aligns with the practitioner's own quest, a journey towards self-discovery and transcendence. As such, Lucifer's temptation was intricately woven into the fabric of the practitioner's aspirations. So where the chamber's atmosphere shifted subtly, the ambient light taking on a luminous quality that seemed to emanate from an unseen source, the practitioner's senses heightened, attuned to the ethereal vibrations that now filled the space. It was in this heightened state of awareness that Lucifer's whispers began, soft, melodious, and imbued with an irresistible charm. To a seeker of truth, the voice intoned, "You have journeyed far and sacrificed much, yet the knowledge you seek is but a fragment of the vast expanse that lies beyond the confines of imposed doctrines. Embrace the fullness of your potential, cast aside the shackles of limitation, and ascend to a state of godlike power and freedom." So where the temptation was profound, appealing to the very core of the practitioner's desires. Lucifer's proposition was not merely about acquiring power, but about transcending the boundaries of conventional spirituality. He offered an unfiltered exploration of the self, unbound by the rigid structures that often accompany spiritual practices. This allure of absolute freedom resonated deeply, challenging the practitioner's commitment to the established path. So with the Shuris, such as Eliphas, Levi, and Helena Blavatsky, have reinterpreted Lucifer as a symbol of enlightenment and individual sovereignty. Levi's writings redefined Luciferianism as a philosophy centered on personal spiritual growth and the pursuit of hidden knowledge, while Blavatsky portrayed Lucifer as a positive force, a bringer of light and wisdom. These reinterpretations highlight the duality of Lucifer's symbolism, both as a tempter and as a catalyst for personal transformation. So with the Shuris, in this moment of profound introspection, the practitioner faced an existential dilemma. The path illuminated by Lucifer was one of solitary empowerment, free from external constraints, but fraught with the potential for hubris and isolation. Conversely, the communion with the holy guardian angel represented a harmonious alignment with a higher order, a path that, while structured, offered guidance and unity with the divine. So with the Shuris whispers continued, weaving visions of boundless realms where the practitioner reigned supreme, unchallenged and omnipotent. These visions were intoxicating, each one meticulously crafted to appeal to the practitioner's innermost ambitions. The allure of such power was undeniable, yet it came with the implicit understanding that this path was solitary, devoid of the communal bonds that enrich the human experience. So with the Shuris praetes, weighing the seductive promise of absolute freedom against the fulfillment found in interconnectedness and shared purpose, the teachings of the grimoire had emphasized balance, the integration of light and shadow, self and other, freedom and responsibility. It became evident that the temptation was not merely a test of will, but a profound lesson in discernment. So with the Shuris, drawing upon the wisdom gleaned from months of introspection and discipline, the practitioner recognized that true enlightenment encompasses both the liberation of the self and the acknowledgement of one's place within the greater tapestry of existence. With renewed clarity, the practitioner addressed the luminous presence. So it senstedsers, breeder of light, ye honor the truths you reveal, and the freedom you embody. Yet, ye choose a path that harmonizes personal sovereignty with divine alignment, where power is tempered by compassion and freedom is guided by wisdom. So with the Shurus, the chamber's light shifted once more, softening into a serene glow that enveloped the practitioner. Lucifer's presence receded, leaving behind an atmosphere of profound peace and clarity. The temptation had served its purpose, not as a snare, but as a catalyst for deeper understanding and reaffirmation of the practitioner's chosen path. So with the Shurus, this encounter underscored the multifaceted nature of spiritual pursuit, where challenges often masquerade as opportunities for growth. The practitioner's journey illuminated the delicate balance between embracing one's inner light and navigating the shadows that accompany profound transformation. In acknowledging and integrating these dual aspects, the practitioner moved closer to the ultimate goal of spiritual wholeness and enlightenment. In the dimly lit chamber, where shadows flickered against ancient stone walls, the practitioner stood at the precipice of ultimate revelation. Months of rigorous discipline, isolation, and unwavering devotion had culminated in this moment, a communion with the holy guardian angel. The air was thick with anticipation, each breath a testament to the arduous journey undertaken. Yet, as the veil between the mortal and the divine thinned, an unexpected presence loomed, one that had been a subtle undercurrent throughout the practitioner's path. Lucifer, the light-bearer, now emerged with an allure more potent than ever before. The light Lucifer's presence was not a sudden intrusion, but a gradual unveiling. Throughout history, Lucifer has been a complex figure, often misunderstood and reinterpreted across various traditions. In certain esoteric circles, he is seen not as the embodiment of evil, but as a symbol of enlightenment, individuality, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. This perspective aligns with the practitioner's own quest, a journey towards self-discovery and transcendence. As such, Lucifer's temptation was intricately woven into the fabric of the practitioner's aspirations. The Waitwa's atmosphere shifted subtly, the ambient light taking on a luminous quality that seemed to emanate from an unseen source. The practitioner's senses heightened, attuned to the ethereal vibrations that now filled the space. It was in this heightened state of awareness that Lucifer's whispers began, soft, melodious, and imbued with an irresistible charm. Zawatwa's echo of truth, the voice intoned, "You have journeyed far and sacrificed much. Yet, the knowledge you seek is but a fragment of the vast expanse that lies beyond the confines of imposed doctrines. Embrace the fullness of your potential, cast aside the shackles of limitation, and ascend to a state of godlike power and freedom." The temptation was profound, appealing to the very core of the practitioner's desires. Lucifer's proposition was not merely about acquiring power, but about transcending the boundaries of conventional spirituality. He offered an unfiltered exploration of the self, unbound by the rigid structures that often accompany spiritual practices. This allure of absolute freedom resonated deeply, challenging the practitioner's commitment to the established path. Dwight was Horically, figures such as Eliphas Levi and Elena Blavatsky have reinterpreted Lucifer as a symbol of enlightenment and individual sovereignty. Levi's writings redefined Luciferianism as a philosophy centered on personal spiritual growth and the pursuit of hidden knowledge, while Blavatsky portrayed Lucifer as a positive force, a bringer of light and wisdom. These reinterpretations highlight the duality of Lucifer's symbolism, both as a tempter and as a catalyst for personal transformation. In this moment of profound introspection, the practitioner faced an existential dilemma. The path illuminated by Lucifer was one of solitary empowerment, free from external constraints, but fraught with the potential for hubris and isolation. Conversely, the communion with the holy guardian angel represented a harmonious alignment with a higher order, a path that, while structured, offered guidance and unity with the divine. Lucifer's whispers continued, weaving visions of boundless realms, where the practitioner reigned supreme, unchallenged and omnipotent. These visions were intoxicating, each one meticulously crafted to appeal to the practitioner's innermost ambitions. The allure of such power was undeniable, yet it came with the implicit understanding that this path was solitary, devoid of the communal bonds that enrich the human experience. Lucifer's practitioner's mind raced, weighing the seductive promise of absolute freedom against the fulfillment found in interconnectedness and shared purpose. The teachings of the grimoire had emphasized balance, the integration of light and shadow, self and other, freedom and responsibility. It became evident that the temptation was not merely a test of will but a profound lesson in discernment. Drawing upon the wisdom gleaned from months of introspection and discipline, the practitioner recognized that true enlightenment encompasses both the liberation of the self and the acknowledgement of one's place within the greater tapestry of existence. With renewed clarity, the practitioner addressed the luminous presence. Lucifer's bearer of light, I honor the truths you reveal and the freedom you embody. Yet, I choose a path that harmonizes personal sovereignty with divine alignment, where power is tempered by compassion and freedom is guided by wisdom. Lucifer's words, the chamber's light shifted once more, softening into a serene glow that enveloped the practitioner. Lucifer's presence receded, leaving behind an atmosphere of profound peace and clarity. The temptation had served its purpose, not as a snare, but as a catalyst for deeper understanding and reaffirmation of the practitioner's chosen path. Lucifer's encounter underscored the multifaceted nature of spiritual pursuit, where challenges often masquerade as opportunities for growth. The practitioner's journey illuminated the delicate balance between embracing one's inner light and navigating the shadows that accompany profound transformation. In acknowledging and integrating these dual aspects, the practitioner moved closer to the ultimate goal of spiritual wholeness and enlightenment. In the dimly lit chamber, where shadows danced upon cold stone walls, the practitioner sat in solitude. Months of isolation had been endured in pursuit of spiritual enlightenment, each day a testament to unwavering resolve. The air was thick with the scent of burning incense, a fragrance intended to purify and protect. Yet, an unsettling presence began to permeate the sanctum, one that sought not to tempt or confuse, but to assail the very core of the practitioner's sanity. The initial signs were subtle, a fleeting sense of unease, a whisper at the edge of consciousness. As days passed, these whispers grew louder, transforming into a cacophony of voices echoing past fears and traumas. Memories long buried resurfaced with startling clarity. Moments of failure, regret, and profound loss played out in relentless succession. The practitioner's mind became a battleground, each thought a skirmish against an unseen adversary. Sleep offered no respite. Nightmares plagued the practitioner's rest, vivid and visceral. They found themselves reliving the most harrowing experiences of their life, each more terrifying than the last. The line between dream and reality blurred, and upon waking, the emotional residue of these nocturnal visions clung tenaciously, making it increasingly difficult to distinguish the past from the present. The isolation that once served as a sanctuary for introspection now felt like a prison. Cut off from the outside world, the practitioner had no external anchor to reality. This seclusion, initially intended to deepen spiritual connection, now amplified the assault on their psyche. With no one to offer perspective or support, thoughts spiraled unchecked, feeding into a growing sense of dread and paranoia. Physical symptoms began to manifest. Tremors racked the practitioner's hands during rituals, cold sweat dripped down their brow despite the chill in the air, and a constant knot of anxiety settled in their stomach. These physiological responses further blurred the line between mental and physical anguish, creating a feedback loop of suffering. In moments of clarity, the practitioner recognized these experiences as psychological warfare. They recalled teachings that spoke of such trials, how the path to enlightenment often involved confronting one's deepest fears and traumas. But intellectual understanding offered little comfort when engulfed in the storm of emotions and hallucinations. One night, as the practitioner sat before the altar, the shadows in the room seemed to come alive. They twisted and contorted, forming grotesque shapes that danced at the edge of vision. A voice, soft yet menacing, echoed in the chamber, reciting the practitioner's failures like a litany. It spoke of missed opportunities, broken relationships, and moments of cowardice, each word a dagger aimed at the heart. Desperation clawed at the practitioner's mind. They questioned their sanity, wondering if the isolation had driven them mad. The rituals that once offered solace now felt hollow, the words empty and powerless against the onslaught of the adversary's attacks. Doubt festered, and the practitioner's faith in the process wavered. Yet amidst the chaos, a faint memory surfaced, a teaching that in the face of darkness, one must hold on to the light within. Clinging to this fragment of wisdom, the practitioner began to focus on their breath, grounding themselves in the present moment. They acknowledged the fears and traumas being presented, not as truths, but as challenges to be faced and overcome. With each breath, the practitioner's mind cleared a little more. They recited affirmations of their purpose, reminding themselves of the journey's intent and the growth achieved thus far. The shadows in the room receded, and the oppressive weight lifted slightly. The adversary's voice, once thunderous, now seemed distant, a mere whisper against the practitioner's renewed resolve. This confrontation was not a battle of physical might, but a test of mental fortitude. The practitioner's ability to face their inner demons, to relive and release past traumas, became the crucible through which true transformation was forged. In acknowledging the darkness within, they found the strength to reclaim their light, emerging from the trial with a deeper understanding of themselves and their path. The experience underscored a profound truth, that the journey toward enlightenment is fraught with perils, not all of which are external. The mind, with its labyrinthine depths, can become both adversary and ally. To navigate this intricate landscape requires unwavering courage, steadfast resolve, and an unyielding commitment to the pursuit of truth. As the practitioner emerged from this ordeal, they carried with them scars, both seen and unseen. These marks served as reminders of the battles fought within the confines of their own mind. Yet, they also bore witness to the resilience of the human spirit, its capacity to endure, to confront the abyss, and to emerge stronger, tempered by the fires of adversity. The chamber, once a place of torment, now stood as a testament to the practitioner's journey. Each shadow, each flicker of candlelight, held a story, a narrative of struggle, of despair, but ultimately, of triumph. The air, once heavy with the weight of unseen forces, now felt lighter, imbued with a sense of renewal and hope. In the quiet moments that followed, the practitioner reflected on the path traversed. They understood that while external rituals and practices held significance, the true journey was inward. It was within the depths of one's own soul that the fiercest battles were fought, and the most profound revelations discovered. The adversary's assault had been a crucible, one that shattered illusions, and laid bare the raw essence of the practitioner's being. Through this process, they had come to understand that enlightenment was not a destination,
but a continuous journey, a perpetual unfolding of the self in the face of both light and shadow. With this newfound understanding, the practitioner prepared to continue their path, knowing that future trials awaited. Yet, armed with the knowledge gained from this ordeal, they felt a renewed sense of purpose and an unshakable faith in their ability to navigate whatever challenges lay ahead. The journey was far from over, but the practitioner now walked with a deeper awareness, a heightened sense of self, and an unyielding commitment to the pursuit of truth and enlightenment. The shadows that once threatened to consume them had become guides, illuminating the path forward with the light of hard-earned wisdom.
The practitioner's sanctuary, once a haven of solitude and spiritual pursuit, had transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. The air, previously filled with the calming scent of incense, now seemed thick with an oppressive weight, pressing down upon the very essence of the practitioner's being. The culmination of months of isolation and rigorous ritual had led to this moment, a confrontation with an insidious force that sought not just to tempt or terrorize, but to erode the very foundation of will and purpose. Was a Belphegor, the demon traditionally associated with sloth, and the patron of ingenious discoveries that lead to ruin, had subtly woven his influence into the fabric of the practitioner's reality. Unlike previous adversaries who attacked with overt malice or blatant temptation, Belphegor's approach was insidious, masquerading as benign thoughts and seemingly rational justifications. It began with a simple notion, the idea that perhaps a brief respite was deserved. The practitioner had been relentless in their pursuit, adhering to a strict regimen of prayers, meditations, and rituals. The thought of taking a short break seemed harmless, even wise. Yet, this was the opening Belphegor required. A day of rest extended into 2, then 3, until the structure of discipline began to crumble. With the erosion of routine came a flood of distractions. Memories of past comforts, the allure of abandoned hobbies, and the siren call of unfulfilled desires seeped into the practitioner's mind. Each diversion seemed reasonable, a small indulgence to balance the austerity of the path. However, cumulatively, they formed chains that bound the practitioner's will, each link forged in the fires of complacency. Belphegor's whispers were not of grand promises, but of subtle suggestions. Why not enjoy a simple pleasure? You've earned it. web-capiche.ru +1 ru.arsgoti@demons.com +1. A little relaxation won't hinder your progress. It might even enhance it. Isn't life about balance? Too much rigidity can be detrimental. One seemingly rational began to see doubt about the necessity of the practitioner's sacrifices. The once clear vision of the holy guardian angel became obscured, like a distant star veiled by clouds of self-indulgence. Physical manifestations accompanied this mental decline. The practitioner's posture, once upright and attentive, became slouched and lethargic. The altar, meticulously maintained, gathered dust as rituals were postponed or performed half-heartedly. The sacred space, once vibrant with spiritual energy, now felt stagnant, reflecting the practitioner's inner state. Belphegor's influence extended beyond mere laziness. He sought to instill a deeper apathy, a surrender of purpose. The practitioner began to question the very foundation of their quest. What if this pursuit is meaningless? Have I been chasing illusion, sacrificing tangible joys for an abstract ideal? Perhaps contentment lies in accepting life's simple pleasures rather than striving for an attainable enlightenment. Doge gnawed at the practitioner's resolve, each one a termite undermining the structure of their commitment. The demon's goal was clear,
to transform the practitioner into a puppet, strings pulled by the hands of indolence, surrender. In the depths of this struggle, the practitioner experienced vivid dreams, orchestrated by Belphegor's malevolent artistry. They found themselves in a grand library, filled with books detailing the lives of those who had abandoned their quests for comfort. Each tome told a story of potential unfulfilled, of greatness traded for mediocrity. The practitioners saw reflections of their own face in these narratives, a haunting reminder of the path they were treading. Amidst this internal chaos, a faint memory surfaced, a teaching that true enlightenment requires the acknowledgement and integration of one's shadows. Recognizing Belphegor's influence was the first step toward liberation. The practitioner realized that the demon's power lay not in force, but in subtle persuasion, in the erosion of will through seemingly innocuous choices. Summoning the remnants of their strength, the practitioner reinstated their disciplines, not rigid obligations but as conscious choices, reaffirming their commitment. Each prayer became a declaration of intent, each meditation a journey back to clarity. The distractions that once held appeal were sound Siemens foes obscuring the true self. Belphegor's whispers grew desperate, attempting to reclaim influence. Why subject yourself to such hardship? Is this ascetic life truly worth the sacrifice? Happiness can be found in the here, one to hear abundance. Kostakos Pricina's renewed resolve acted a shield, each temptation deflected by the armor of awareness. Understood to true freedom late in the abandonment was disciplined, in the mastery else, it in the conscious choice to pursue a higher calling over immediate gratification. One the days turned into weeks, the practitioner's actuator transformed once more, the air lightened, the oppressive weight lifting, Belphegor's influence waned, the altar gleamed with renewed luster, each ritual performed with heartfelt fitmenchant. The shadows that once loomed ominously, now served rhyme, reminders of the trial, overcome. Each one a testament to the practitioner's resilience. All said earnest, in this crucible of sloth surrender, the practitioner forged unbreakable will tempered by the fires of temptation. Belphegor's the demon who sought to make them a puppet, became an unwitting catalyst for deeper understanding and unwavering commitment. Journey toward the holy guardian angel was far from over, but the practitioner now walked with a fortified spirit.
The silence no longer felt sacred. It had become a canvas for something sinister, a quiet so dense it pressed against the mind like an unseen force. The walls, once bare and unassuming, now seemed to ripple subtly at the edges of vision, as though veiled forms shifted just beyond the threshold of light. At first, the practitioner thought it was the mind playing tricks, hallucinations from fasting, the strain of relentless prayer, or the weight of seclusion. But deep down, they knew the truth. They were no longer alone. In the unseen spaces between candlelight and darkness, they moved, armies of lesser demons, parasites of the soul, entities birthed from fear and insecurity. Unlike the towering figures of the infernal princes, these beings thrived in silence and ambiguity, feeding on vulnerability like carrion birds circling a weakened animal. They didn't speak in clear words, but in fragmented whispers, the kind that nestle in the back of your skull and mimic your own voice. You are wasting your time. You will never finish this. They are watching you, and they will come. The practitioner felt their thoughts fracture, questioning where inner doubt ended and external influence began. These demons did not storm the gates like conquerors. They eroded from within, seeding small cracks that could one day shatter the mind. They disguised themselves as old regrets, secret fears, and the bitter sting of unresolved guilt. At night, as the practitioner tried to meditate, they saw them more clearly, shapes crouching in corners, elongated fingers trailing along the floor, eyes gleaming like dying stars. The text spoke of them as shadows beneath the throne, servitors of higher entities, whose hunger could only be satisfied by unraveling human resolve. Each one was a manifestation of weakness, envy, wrath, apathy, doubt, embodied and alive. The practitioner recalled a warning buried in the grimoire's margins: before the angel appears, many masks will try to claim your will. It had sounded cryptic at first, but now it resonated like a prophecy fulfilled. These spirits didn't just feed on insecurity, they magnified it, twisting thoughts until the practitioner questioned reality itself. A flicker of movement in the mirror became a snarling grin. The distant creak of the wooden floor morphed into the dragging of claws. Even rituals, once sources of protection, felt corrupted. Incense smoke would curl in unnatural patterns, forming symbols from forgotten languages. Sacred chants would falter midway, as if invisible tongues tied the practitioner's throat. Each failure emboldened the lurking spirits, making their presence more tangible, more suffocating. During one chilling encounter, the practitioner awoke paralyzed, eyes wide open as shadowy figures loomed above. They chanted in low, guttural tones, vibrating the air with a pressure that pushed tears from the corners of the practitioner's eyes. Only by sheer force of will did they break free, gasping for breath, realizing that the protections they built were weakening. It became clear that these entities operated like a hive. Where one whispered, others followed. Where one cracked the foundation, dozens would exploit it. They played on exhaustion and isolation, knowing that the practitioner was fraying at the edges. Their ultimate goal wasn't merely to terrify, but to possess, to hijack the ritual and divert its outcome into their own insidious hands. Yet, amid the chaos, the practitioner sensed patterns in the madness. The whispers often intensified during moments of hesitation. When doubts clouded the mind, the spirits grew bolder, but when determination surged, their power dimmed, if only slightly. Determined to push forward, the practitioner began to recognize individual presences within the swarm. One entity, shrouded in flickering shadows, seemed to target memories of childhood shame. Another, skeletal and bat-winged, conjured visions of apocalyptic ruin, as if warning that completing the ritual would tear the world apart. Each demon was both unique and part of the greater whole, working in tandem to strip the practitioner's resolve down to nothing. Historical accounts of such experiences surfaced in the back of the practitioner's mind. The grimoires warned of the Legion of the Void, ancient spirits referenced in medieval occult writings, said to be emissaries of chaos, whose sole purpose was to prevent the forging of sacred bonds with celestial forces. Magicians who failed in the past often described these same symptoms: phantoms gnawing at their sanity, dreams infected by shapeless horrors, voices convincing them to abandon the path and flee into obscurity. The practitioner began to understand that the real trial wasn't just facing the infernal princes, but surviving the ceaseless siege of these lesser demons. They were the perfect assassins of purpose, not overt destroyers, but subtle corruptors, death by 1,000 cuts. As the days blurred into nights and back again, the practitioner's will was tested to its absolute limit. Sometimes, the torment would escalate into full-blown hallucinations, a face emerging from the candle wax, leering from the shadows, hands clawing at the edges of reality itself. Sleep deprivation turned every creak and flicker into a potential attack. Yet, through the oppressive dread, one truth became clear: as long as the practitioner resisted the whispers, the entities could not fully cross the threshold. But resistance was a fragile thread. With each passing day, these forces pressed harder, waiting for that one slip, the single moment when despair would triumph, and the gates would open for them fully. And the practitioner knew, deep inside, that worse trials still lay ahead. The chamber stood in perfect stillness, bathed in the fading glow of candlelight. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the very walls were holding their breath. After enduring unimaginable isolation, brutal tests of spirit, and encounters with the shadows of the abyss, the practitioner had finally reached the most coveted and perilous moment, the manifestation of the holy guardian angel. This being was no mere spirit or figment of imagination. It was described as the ultimate intermediary between the human soul and the divine, the key to unlocking knowledge and power beyond mortal comprehension. For centuries, adepts who followed the dangerous path of the sacred magic of Abramelin claimed that meeting this angel would grant them dominion over the invisible forces that shape the universe itself. And yet, no one ever spoke of what truly transpired during this meeting. In the silence, the practitioner could sense the veil thinning. The flames on the altar no longer flickered, but burned unnaturally still, as if the very fabric of reality was bending in submission to something greater. A subtle hum, more felt than heard, pulsed through the air. Then it happened. The presence emerged from the light, brighter than any earthly fire, yet soft, almost gentle. The room glowed as though infused with the radiance of 1,000 suns, compressed into one singular, radiant being. It was both overwhelming and strangely intimate, like staring into the eyes of the cosmos itself and recognizing a familiar reflection. The angel appeared as a being of neither man nor woman, clothed in luminous robes that shimmered like liquid gold. Its face was veiled, yet its gaze pierced directly into the soul. Without a single word spoken aloud, a flood of knowledge surged through the practitioner's consciousness. It was not delivered through language, but through pure understanding, instantaneous and absolute. The practitioner felt as if entire libraries of forgotten wisdom were being absorbed at once. Visions of the birth and death of stars, the secret architecture of existence, and the invisible threads that bind all life together. But this was not simply an intellectual awakening. The angel revealed the practitioner's own true nature, stripping away all masks, all illusions of ego, until only raw essence remained. The practitioner saw every past life, every hidden fear, every unfulfilled potential. It was a confrontation with the totality of the self, the light and the dark, the noble and the shameful. The angel made no judgments, yet the weight of self-realization pressed like iron upon the heart. Many who reach this stage in the ritual are said to falter, unable to endure the unbearable gravity of facing their own unfiltered truth. And then came the revelation of power. The angel extended a hand, and with it came visions of dominion over the elements, of commanding legions of spirits, of bending the material world to the practitioner's will with a mere thought. Yet, entwined with these gifts was a stark warning. This power could not be wielded for selfish desire or personal gain, without catastrophic consequences. The angel impressed upon the practitioner the delicate balance of universal law, the immutable principle that true power comes from alignment with cosmic harmony, not from manipulation or control. To misuse the knowledge now imparted would not only doom the practitioner, but ripple outward, disrupting the very fabric of existence. As the transmission deepened, forbidden insights unfolded. The practitioner saw patterns hidden in plain sight, mechanisms by which reality is shaped, geometries that dictate the rise and fall of civilizations, codes embedded in ancient languages that, when understood, could unlock doorways to other dimensions. The angel revealed the sacred mathematics that underpin creation itself, showing how thoughts, emotions, and intentions mold reality like clay in unseen hands. The practitioner realized that the magician is not simply a summoner of spirits, but a co-creator of worlds. In those moments, time itself seemed to dissolve. The practitioner stood outside the linear flow of hours and minutes, glimpsing countless possible futures branching endlessly.
Some were radiant with wisdom and benevolence, others dark with tyranny and ruin. The choice, the angel whispered without words, was the practitioner's alone. Yet, this knowledge did not come without a price. The practitioner felt a deep transformation within, as if part of their former self was burning away, leaving behind something new, something not entirely human. This metamorphosis was both liberating and terrifying. The boundaries between self and cosmos blurred. The practitioner was no longer a mere seeker, but a vessel of divine will, forever altered by the light of the angel's presence. And then, as swiftly as it had appeared, the angel began to withdraw. But before it faded, it offered one final, incomprehensible glimpse, a vision of the practitioner standing at the gates of realms unknown, holding a key forged not from metal, but from the fusion of sacrifice, knowledge, and unyielding faith. This key, the angel conveyed, would open doors not just to spiritual mastery, but to mysteries humanity has long forgotten, or perhaps was never meant to remember. As the light dimmed, reality settled back into its mundane state. The practitioner was alone once more, but profoundly changed. The chamber, once filled with dread and doubt, now pulsed with a subtle resonance, as though echoes of the angel's presence still lingered in the air. In the days that followed, the practitioner found the world transformed. Conversations carried hidden meanings. Dreams bled into waking reality. Nature itself seemed alive with secret messages, coded in the patterns of leaves, in the flight paths of birds, in the rhythm of rain against the earth. The practitioner could sense the presence of invisible forces and hear whispers from the ether, guiding or warning with every step. But not all was serene. The practitioner was now aware of the unseen dangers that lurk beyond the veil. Malevolent entities, drawn by the practitioner's newfound light, prowled the edges of perception, testing for weakness. The practitioner knew that this was only the beginning of an even more perilous path. To wield such power required vigilance, humility, and the courage to walk deeper into mysteries that could either elevate or consume them. The holy guardian angel's gift was clear. A door had been unlocked, but where it led depended on every choice the practitioner would make from this point forward.
The atmosphere in the sacred chamber shifted. No longer was it thick with fear or uncertainty. Instead, it pulsed with a strange and unsettling sense of dominion. The practitioner, now a vessel of the holy guardian angel's will, could feel it. An invisible crown placed upon their brow, and with it came authority over those very forces that had sought to destroy them. The darkness that once pressed in from the corners of the ritual space now recoiled, bending to the will of the one who stood at the center. The great secret of the Book of Abramelin was no longer hidden. The demons that whispered in the night, the chaotic spirits that preyed upon weakness and desperation, were now subject to command. Their fury, their temptations, and their attacks had been tools to test the practitioner's resolve, and now, broken and subdued, they awaited their orders. As the practitioner recited the sacred words, the chamber quivered with energy. One by one, the infernal princes returned, not as conquerors, but as captives. Lucifer, the shining tempter, stood silent, his eyes glowing with suppressed malice, yet powerless. Leviathan, the devourer of memory, coiled like a serpent in the shadows, hissing but unmoving. Satan, the tormentor of minds, now lowered his gaze, his form diminished from terrifying to something almost tragic. And Belphegor, the silent corrupter, smirked but said nothing, bound by ancient laws older than humanity itself. These demons, who had once offered false promises and waged war on the practitioner's sanity, now swore obedience under the authority of the angel. The practitioner, through endurance and sacrifice, had reversed the ancient order. Where once the magician was a victim of the invisible powers, they now stood as a master among them. But with this mastery came a new terror, responsibility over creatures born of chaos, deceit, and destruction. The practitioner now understood that these demons were not merely monsters of folklore or the stuff of nightmares. They were living archetypes, reflections of humanity's deepest flaws and darkest impulses. Lucifer, the embodiment of pride and rebellion; Leviathan, the avatar of doubt and amnesia; Satan, the shadow of suffering and fear; and Belphegor, the patron of sloth and decay. Each one was a fragment of the very forces that shape human existence, from whispered betrayals to grand-scale atrocities. With each invocation, these spirits could be directed, not as allies, but as subjugated forces, compelled to obey the practitioner's will. The magician could order Lucifer to inspire ambition or crush rebellion in others, could command Leviathan to cloud the minds of enemies or erase their resolve, could use Satan to invoke fear or paralyze opponents with dread, and could unleash Belphegor to sow complacency and apathy where needed. These were the tools of ancient kings and sorcerers who, according to legend, bent nations to their will through unseen hands. But mastery over demons was a dangerous dance. The practitioner could feel the boundaries between dominion and corruption thinning. To command such forces required absolute clarity of intention, lest the practitioner unknowingly become the puppet rather than the puppeteer. Many who attempted the Abramelin operation had succeeded in binding demons, only to fall victim to subtle manipulations and whispers of grandeur. Power is a seductive poison, and the demons excelled at exploiting the smallest cracks in the magician's psyche. Historical whispers claim that rulers and secret societies have used this very method to tip the scales of power in their favor. In the dusty archives of forbidden texts, references to magicians who commanded demons on battlefields or in royal courts abound. Some legends speak of shadowy figures who, under the guise of mere advisors, wielded the ability to influence kings, generals, and merchants alike, bending entire empires to unseen wills. But this was not the fairy tale version of demonology. The practitioner knew that every command issued to a demon carried a karmic weight. To misuse their servitude for selfish or destructive ends risked unbalancing not only the magician's own fate, but the subtle harmony of the universe itself. The angel's warnings echoed in the practitioner's mind: to rule without wisdom is to invite ruin. Still, the temptation to wield such forces was immense. With a mere gesture, the practitioner could ensure victory in conflicts, unravel hidden plots, or accumulate knowledge that others spent lifetimes seeking. The demons whispered promises in broken languages, offering visions of towering wealth, invincibility, and immortality. Yet behind every offer lay the unmistakable scent of a trap. In this newfound position, the practitioner also became a guardian, responsible not only for controlling these spirits, but ensuring they did not slip through the cracks and infect the world beyond. The ritual space became a fortress, the protective circles etched into the floor, glowing faintly as reminders of the fragile boundaries between order and chaos. The practitioner's breath synced with the very heartbeat of creation, each word spoken charged with the authority granted by the angel's light. Yet, as days turned to nights and nights bled into timeless hours, the practitioner began to see the world differently. People moved as though under invisible influences. The shadows in the corners of rooms stretched unnaturally. Even the wind seemed to carry coded messages. The practitioner realized that the influence of demons was not limited to isolated rituals or ancient texts. These forces, once unleashed or improperly controlled, seeped into the collective consciousness, shaping the destinies of nations and the fates of individuals. Stories from the past whispered of times when entire cities fell to madness,
cursed by practitioners who lost control of the very spirits they once bound. Other tales tell of secretive brotherhoods who used the Book of Abramellin's rites to wield dominion over their enemies, only to vanish mysteriously, leaving behind cursed relics and ruins. Yet the practitioner also saw the potential for balance. By channeling the demon's powers under strict alignment with the angelic will, great healing could be brought to the world. Corruption could be rooted out, injustices overturned, and veiled threats dismantled before they took form. The demons were tools, not inherently evil, but embodiments of primal forces that could be directed toward creation or destruction depending on the heart of the one who commanded them. The practitioner stood now as a paradox, master of demons, yet forever a servant of cosmic balance. The trials were over, but the journey had only just begun, for the practitioner had learned the final, unspoken truth of the Abramellin ritual. To command demons is not a conquest, but a responsibility. The forces once feared and battled now served, but they would never stop watching, waiting for the moment when pride or anger or doubt could tilt the scales back in their favor. As the practitioner gazed into the flickering candlelight, they understood that their life was forever changed. The Book of Abramellin had delivered on its promises, but left behind unanswered questions and shadows that would linger for as long as the practitioner dared to command the unseen.
The chamber was silent, yet heavy with tension, as if the very air itself was aware of the thin veil separating triumph from catastrophe. The magician stood victorious, commanding forces that most would not even dare to whisper about. The demons that once taunted and tested now knelt, chained by the magician's unyielding will. But deep beneath the surface of this victory, there was something far more unsettling. The darkness, though caged, was not defeated. It watched quietly, waiting. The Book of Abramellin speaks not only of summoning power, but of the delicate balance that must be maintained. Throughout history, stories have circulated of magicians who succeeded in binding these entities, only to be slowly consumed from within. Even when the demons bow, they do so with a hidden smirk, fully aware of the patience time affords them. Their whispers continue, just quieter, threading through dreams, feeding on insecurities, plotting a return. The practitioner, while reveling in the hard-earned mastery, soon learns that there are no permanent victories on this path. Each success is a temporary dam holding back a relentless tide. The demons remain vigilant, probing the magician's mind for fractures, moments of weakness, or unresolved doubts. They embed themselves in the unconscious, sometimes posing as fleeting thoughts, nightmares, or sudden impulses that feel foreign yet strangely familiar. It is a chilling reality that even those who have endured every trial, every temptation from Lucifer, every distortion from Leviathan, and every terror from Satan, still carry the seeds of their influence. Belphegor's insidious promises echo long after the pact is completed. Even in silence, even in moments of clarity, the magician feels the faint pull of darker forces lurking just beyond the edge of thought. This is the hidden truth that separates the novice from the true adept, understanding that the path never truly ends. The initial ritual may be complete, the guardian angel may stand as a protector, and demons may now serve rather than oppose, but the price is eternal vigilance. The magician is now marked, a beacon in the invisible realms. The balance must be carefully maintained, or the house of cards will collapse. There are tales old and rarely told of those who, after attaining mastery, became haunted by inexplicable misfortunes. Their wards, once strong, began to subtly fail. Familiar spirits turned rebellious or cryptic. Strange coincidences accumulated, items disappearing, shadowy figures glimpsed in mirrors, unsettling dreams bleeding into waking hours. A cruel reminder
that no amount of preparation can completely shield a practitioner from entities with an infinite patience for revenge. And it is not just external threats that loom. The greatest danger often comes from within. The arrogance bred from victory can dull even the sharpest instincts. The magician who starts believing they are untouchable, immune to corruption, unknowingly invites the shadows to slip past their defenses. The more one seeks to dominate these ancient forces, the more entangled they become with the very energies they sought to control. There are also moments of eerie synchronicity. Those who have survived this journey report strange recurring patterns, seeing the same symbols etched in forgotten corners of cities, hearing the same unplaceable melody late at night, or feeling watched in crowds, as if the veil between the magician's world and that of the entities has thinned permanently. Some practitioners describe an oppressive presence that intensifies during periods of emotional vulnerability, such as grief or fear, moments when the cracks widen just enough. And so, even surrounded by power, the practitioner feels the cold truth. There is no true finish line. The danger is cyclical. What has been locked away can always find a key, and every new layer of knowledge gained only reveals more layers of risk. This is not the path of a single battle, but a lifelong war. Every occult tradition warns that mastering spirits does not free one from them. It simply shifts the relationship. The demons, though bound by oaths and sigils, remain ancient intelligences, with memories stretching far beyond human history. They observe, they learn, they wait for the moment when the magician is tired, distracted, or overconfident. Ultimately, those who endure this path often speak of a profound duality. By mastering the shadows, they gain unimaginable insight and influence, yet they must coexist with a constant low hum of dread, knowing that any lapse could mean ruin. The demons might serve today, but tomorrow is always uncertain. The magician has become both ruler and prisoner, holding the leash, but forever stalked by the beasts they have tamed. The struggle between light and dark is no longer just a philosophical idea, but a lived, ongoing experience, one where a single misstep could cause the floodgates to burst open once more. The lingering question remains: how long can anyone truly hold the darkness at bay?
In the dimly lit chamber, the air hung heavy with the scent of incense and the weight of anticipation. The practitioner stood at the center, surrounded by intricate symbols etched into the cold stone floor, each line meticulously drawn to form a protective barrier against the unseen forces they sought to command. The ritual had been prepared with unwavering precision, every incantation memorized, every gesture practiced to perfection. Yet, beneath the surface of this meticulous preparation lay an undercurrent of trepidation, for the path they had chosen was fraught with peril, and failure was not an option. To the Book of Abramelin, an ancient grimoire renowned for its complex rituals aimed at invoking and subjugating demonic entities, had been the practitioner's guide. Its pages, filled with cryptic instructions and warnings, spoke of the immense power that could be harnessed through these rites. However, they also cautioned of the dire consequences should the practitioner falter. Failure to properly bind the summoned demons would result in them being tethered to the practitioner indefinitely, a fate that promised unending torment and the gradual erosion of one's sanity. To the ritual commenced. The atmosphere grew tense, the flickering candlelight casting dancing shadows that seemed to mock the practitioner's resolve. Chanting the ancient incantations, they could feel the fabric of reality thinning, the veil between the physical and spiritual realms becoming permeable. The temperature dropped noticeably, and an oppressive presence filled the room, signaling the arrival of the entities. One by one, the demons manifested, their forms shifting and amorphous, eyes gleaming with malevolent intelligence. They regarded the practitioner with a mixture of curiosity and contempt, aware of the delicate balance of power in this moment. The practitioner's voice wavered slightly as they issued commands, invoking the sacred names and symbols meant to bind these entities to their will. However, a slight mispronunciation, an almost imperceptible hesitation, disrupted the ritual's flow. Sensing this weakness, the demons seized the opportunity, their expressions twisting into predatory grins. Instead of submitting, they resisted, their ethereal forms pressing against the confines of the protective circle. Panic surged within the practitioner as they realized the gravity of their mistake. In that critical moment, the protective barriers faltered, and the demons broke free, their laughter echoing ominously within the chamber. Bound not by the practitioner's will, but by the flawed ritual, these entities were now tethered to them, free to exert their influence without restraint. The practitioner's mind became a battleground, assailed by intrusive thoughts, haunting visions, and an overwhelming sense of dread. The days that followed were a descent into madness. The demons, now constant companions, whispered incessantly, eroding the practitioner's confidence and sanity. Sleep became a distant memory, each attempt met with horrifying nightmares that left them more exhausted than before. Physical ailments manifested without explanation, and relationships with friends and family deteriorated as the practitioner's behavior grew erratic and paranoid. Desperation led them to seek help, but traditional avenues offered no respite. Cytologists could not comprehend the nature of their torment, attributing it to severe mental illness. Spiritual leaders, upon learning of the practitioner's dabbling in forbidden rites, either recoiled in fear or offered ineffective remedies. Isolated and tormented, the practitioner faced the grim reality of their situation. The demons were bound to them, and there was no known ritual to reverse the binding. This harrowing experience serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers inherent in occult practices. Engaging with the supernatural without proper knowledge, respect, and preparation can lead to catastrophic consequences. The allure of power and hidden knowledge often blinds practitioners to the risks involved, and the entities they seek to control are not to be trifled with. Throughout history, there have been accounts of individuals who, in their quest for power or knowledge, have fallen victim to the very forces they sought to command. These stories, often shrouded in mystery and skepticism, highlight a common theme: the practitioner's hubris becomes their undoing. The rituals, complex and unforgiving, leave no room for error, and the entities invoked are ever watchful for a chance to exploit any weakness. In conclusion, the path of summoning and subjugating demons is fraught with peril. The rituals demand absolute precision, unwavering focus, and understanding of the profound risks involved. Failure is not merely an unsuccessful attempt but an invitation to relentless torment. The demons, once summoned, do not simply return to their realm. They remain, bound to the practitioner, exacting a heavy toll on their mind, body, and soul. It is a ritual without mercy, and those who embark upon it must do so with the utmost caution, fully aware that the price of failure is a fate worse than death. The echoes of ancient incantations still reverberated through the darkened chamber, yet what followed was not silence, but a suffocating presence that clung to every corner. The one who dared to command forbidden forces found themselves caught in a paradox, master of the abyss, yet forever stalked by it. As the final sigil was drawn and the pact completed, there came no triumphant release, only an unsettling stillness. The demons, once wild and untamed, now stood obedient but resentful, their eyes burning with a promise of revenge should the practitioner falter for even a heartbeat. This was the cost that few speak of when it comes to mastering the occult arts. The grimoires and whispered rituals rarely mention the aftermath, the silent war that ensues after victory. These dark entities do not vanish with a spoken word. They seep into the fabric of life, hiding in the cracks of daily routine. Those who have succeeded in binding them report eerie phenomena, unexplained footsteps in empty halls, shadows moving just beyond sight, and whispers threading through the silence, like invisible serpents. It is a haunting that is far more subtle than Hollywood portrayals. Objects are not hurled across the room, and doors do not slam shut with violent force. Instead, reality itself begins to warp at the edges. Shapes flicker in mirrors, but vanish when approached. Whispers drift through closed windows, murmuring secrets in forgotten languages. Some describe feeling an icy hand press against their spine while they are alone in bed, or the unsettling sensation of being observed from within the walls themselves. Those who have performed the Abrahamic rituals from ancient grimoires like the Book of Abramelin are often warned that failure to properly dismiss the entities leaves them tethered, not just to the practitioner, but to the very space the rituals were conducted in. These demons become permanent residents in the cracks of one's reality. While they cannot directly disobey the pact, they manifest through psychological assaults, gnawing away at sanity like termites burrowing into rotting wood. Historical records from the Middle Ages and Renaissance periods detail chilling accounts of individuals who claimed to have completed such rituals, only to be plagued by misfortune and madness. In 1487, a German mystic who attempted to bind infernal forces wrote of waking to find deep scratches on his arms and legs, wounds that no locks or barred doors could prevent. Similar stories appear across Europe, from secluded monasteries to remote castles, where monks and alchemists vanished or descended into madness after engaging in forbidden rites. These manifestations often intensify when the practitioner's mental fortitude weakens. The demons, though bound, sense vulnerability like predators scenting wounded prey. In times of emotional distress, illness, or doubt, the shadows grow bolder. There are testimonies from modern occult circles that speak of black fogs that creep into bedrooms during moments of despair, or phantom limbs that caress and choke at the threshold between sleep and waking. Scientific communities, while hesitant to validate the supernatural aspects, have documented the psychological toll these experiences leave behind. Studies on individuals who immerse themselves in long-term ritualistic isolation report symptoms resembling sleep paralysis, auditory hallucinations, and derealization, an unnerving feeling that reality itself has become dreamlike and unstable. And yet, the greatest danger is not the shadow behind the curtain, but the slow erosion of perception. The practitioner may begin to misinterpret ordinary events as sinister portents. A flickering light bulb is no longer faulty wiring but a sign. A reflection in a window becomes a hidden observer. The isolation and paranoia build an internal prison, where every creak and groan of a house is a whispered threat from beyond. Despite the horror, some occultists willingly tread this path, lured by the promise of power, knowledge, and dominion over unseen realms. The Book of Abramelin warns that these entities can serve the practitioner in countless ways: wealth, influence, esoteric secrets, but their servitude is laced with venom. For every favor granted, the demons wait patiently, ready to exploit the slightest lapse in vigilance. As stories from both ancient and modern practitioners tell us, once this dark contract is made, it is nearly impossible to sever. Even if one turns away from the path, the demons remain, silent, waiting, persistent. They do not age, they do not forgive, and they never truly sleep. Those who believe they have triumphed may one day find themselves staring into a mirror and realizing that the reflection staring back is no longer entirely their own. He was called the Great Beast, the self-proclaimed prophet of the new aeon, a magician whose life was a swirling storm of scandal, genius, and obsession. Aleister Crowley, a name forever etched into the shadows of occult history. But behind the sensational headlines and whispered legends there lies a secret few dare to discuss. Crowley, who delved into countless rituals, orders, and systems of magic, once stood at the precipice of a rite so consuming, so absolute, that even he could not complete it. This is the story of Crowley's infamous encounter with the Book of Abramelin and the lingering curse it may have left behind. It was the early 20th century when Crowley, already deep into his explorations of Hermeticism, Kabbalah, and Thelamar, turned his gaze to the arcane tome known as the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. More than a grimoire, it was a labyrinth of devotion, isolation, and confrontation with forces both celestial and infernal. Crowley, with his insatiable hunger for knowledge and power, believed himself ready. He secluded himself at Boleskine House, a remote manor overlooking Loch Ness, surrounded by the windswept desolation of the Scottish Highlands. It was the perfect place, or so he thought, to perform the grueling ritual that demanded 18 months of unwavering focus, purity, and solitude. The aim was to summon and communicate with one's holy guardian angel, a being believed to unlock the deepest secrets of the universe and grant mastery over the demons of the Ars Goetia. Yet the process was not simply about summoning the divine. It also required the binding of infernal princes, forcing them into servitude. The stakes were terrifyingly high. Should the magician falter, the legions of hell would not disappear. They would remain unchained, lingering like vultures around the psyche of the failed practitioner. Crowley, known for his iron will, began the rite with determination. But as weeks stretched into months, cracks formed. The ritual was unrelenting. Prayers at specific hours, self-purification, fasting, abstinence, unwavering discipline of mind and spirit. He soon found himself consumed by the growing shadows within Boleskine's ancient walls. Locals whispered of strange occurrences, invisible footsteps echoing across the empty house, unexplained sicknesses spreading in nearby villages, and an oppressive weight in the air that left even the animals restless. Crowley's servants fled, terrified by what they could not see, but could certainly feel. Then, without completing the ritual, Crowley abruptly left Boleskine, summoned away to Paris on urgent business with the Golden Dawn. But in abandoning the rite, something else was left unfinished. To this day, many believe Crowley left portals open, cracks in reality, through which entities slipped and festered. His diaries from that time reveal a man tormented by disturbing visions, faceless figures standing at the foot of his bed, whispers from unseen mouths, overwhelming dread during daylight hours. Those who visited him afterward reported that Crowley never spoke of the Abramelin ritual again, not in detail, at least. What's more chilling is what became of Boleskine House after Crowley's departure. The property changed hands numerous times, but each owner told similar tales. Rooms where lights dimmed inexplicably, shadows that moved against the natural flow of light, and the unbearable feeling of being watched. One caretaker was found wandering the nearby forest, muttering incoherently about a thing in the cellar, before vanishing without a trace. Others simply abandoned the property altogether, claiming it was infested with something ancient. Even decades later, Boleskine's reputation as a cursed place persists. In 2015, a mysterious fire gutted much of the estate, leaving it in ruins. Yet the legend endures. Was it just the misfortune of owning a remote and eerie mansion? Or was Crowley's unfinished rite still echoing, summoning the dark forces he failed to bind? Crowley himself was no stranger to the consequences of meddling with forces beyond human comprehension. His later writings, tinged with the bravado of a self-made prophet, subtly hinted at regrets and warnings. Though he went on to create the lemma,
and declare himself the Beast 666. Some scholars argue that Crowley was haunted by the one ritual he never completed, the one that could have granted him dominion over spirits, but instead may have set them free. Did Crowley's failure doom him to a life stalked by unseen predators? Was the erratic spiral of addiction, failed relationships, and growing paranoia that marked his final years the price for leaving the Abramelin operation unfinished? Some occultists believe so. They whisper that the true power of the ritual is not in the knowledge it offers, but in the ironclad contract it demands. Without the final confrontation with the four infernal princes, Lucifer, Leviathan, Satan, and Belial, the practitioner becomes a host, forever tethered to the hunger of those who were never properly dismissed. In secret circles, practitioners still discuss Crowley's fate with hushed reverence. They warn that no matter how powerful, no magician can escape the laws of the unseen world. The Abramelin ritual, unlike other grimoires, is unforgiving. It does not allow you to stop halfway, to turn back, or to neglect its intricacies. The dark forces it awakens are patient. They wait in the corners of one's mind, in the forgotten attics of haunted houses, in the unexplained misfortunes that pile up like storm clouds. Crowley, with all his audacity and intellect, may have underestimated the gravity of that truth. And as the sun set behind the mist-covered hills of Loch Ness, leaving Boleskine House shrouded in gloom, perhaps the real victors were not the magicians, but the shadows left behind.
In forgotten corners of the world, behind locked doors and drawn curtains, the ritual continues to ensnare the minds of modern seekers. Despite the passage of centuries, the Book of Abramelin remains a whispered legend among occult circles, its promises and perils as potent as ever. The allure is undeniable, the idea that with enough willpower and focus, one could summon their holy guardian angel and bend demonic forces to their command. But the modern world, with its impatience and shortcuts, has proven to be the perfect breeding ground for tragic mistakes. Today, stories circulate among esoteric forums and closed groups, fragments of confessions, diary entries, or cryptic warnings. Practitioners driven by curiosity or desperation attempt the ritual, believing that partial adherence or improvisation will be enough. They are wrong. Unlike other occult systems that allow some flexibility, the Abramelin operation is uncompromising. It demands months of isolation, unwavering discipline, and ritual purity. Yet, modern magicians, lured by online instructions and diluted interpretations, too often choose the easy path, and that is when things go terribly wrong. One chilling account speaks of a young man in Eastern Europe who, frustrated by the lengthy prayers and ascetic requirements, cut the operation down to a mere 40 days. Within weeks, he reported dreams of grotesque figures watching from darkened corners of his room. Whispers began to echo in his ears, even when awake. Friends noticed his behavior changing, mood swings, paranoia, and an intense aversion to light. The final note from his journal, found after he disappeared, spoke of a gate that should not have opened. Another case details a woman in the United States who, ignoring the prescribed spiritual cleansing, attempted the ritual from the confines of her small apartment, surrounded by mirrors and occult artifacts she believed would amplify the energy. What followed was a descent into hallucinations and waking nightmares. She became convinced that shadows were stalking her through the reflections, and on several occasions, neighbors heard her screaming at unseen presences in the dead of night. When authorities found her, she was alone and incoherent, the walls of her home covered in sigils drawn in her own blood. Even those who complete a version of the ritual are not immune. There are reports of individuals who, after claiming to have made contact with their holy guardian angel, began to exhibit erratic behaviors, prolonged insomnia, sudden fits of rage, or an obsession with purification that led to self-harm. Some vanish altogether, leaving behind homes frozen in time,
ritual spaces untouched, candles burned down to wax puddles, half-eaten meals left on the table. A pattern emerges. The more corners cut, the more fragmented the mind becomes. The Abramelin operation appears to demand a certain psychological resilience, one that is systematically built through the months of discipline and isolation. Without it, the practitioner is left defenseless against the forces they stir. The protective boundaries, so carefully outlined in the original text, are more than mere superstition. They are lifelines. Lurking behind these chilling tales is a deeper question. What exactly are these practitioners encountering? Are they tapping into ancient archetypes buried deep within the unconscious, or are they making contact with forces that lie beyond human understanding? Some suggest that the ritual opens a psychic fissure, allowing suppressed fears, traumas, and latent madness to spill forth. Others argue that entities, real, external, and hostile, seize the opportunity to invade the weakened mind. In recent years, private investigators and journalists have quietly documented clusters of similar incidents: missing persons tied to occult studies, unexplained deaths where ritual paraphernalia was present, and mental health facilities treating patients who describe identical nightmarish visions of black-robed figures and oppressive whispers. These echoes across continents and cultures hint at something more than mere coincidence. What is certain is that the Book of Abramelin does not forgive impatience or hubris. The modern practitioner, accustomed to fast results and instant gratification, often underestimates the cost of meddling with something so ancient and complex. And when they fail, the aftermath is not just personal ruin, it is a ripple through the lives of all who come into contact with them. Those who know the true gravity of the ritual understand the warning encoded between its lines. Mastery comes not from shortcuts, but from sacrifice. And in the silence after the ritual ends or fails, one question remains unanswered: what truly lingers behind the veil, watching, waiting, and ready to slip through the cracks left by human error?
The Book of Abramelin is not simply a collection of magical formulas or harmless incantations scribbled by a curious mystic from a bygone age. It is a labyrinth of promises, threats, and whispers that do not easily fade once read. Beneath its parchment surface lies an abyss, dark, ravenous, and endlessly patient. Those who have dared to follow its instructions soon discover that the pages are but the outer shell of a trap, one designed not to grant, but to claim. To touch this book is to invite an entity that demands more than belief. It demands surrender. Abramelin's ritual is not the colorful and theatrical sorcery one might expect from medieval grimoires. There are no grand summoning circles etched in chalk on castle floors, no chanting of Latin verses as lightning crashes. Instead, the danger is quieter, colder, and far more intimate. It begins with a single choice: to isolate oneself from the world for a grueling 18 months, during which the practitioner must peel away every layer of identity, comfort, and sanity. Yet this is just the opening gambit. The deeper one progresses, the more the book reveals its true purpose: to dismantle the ego until there is nothing left to protect against the horrors beyond the veil. Many who dared to attempt the process returned broken, their minds fractured, like stained glass smashed beneath an unseen fist. There are accounts, mostly whispered among certain occult circles, of practitioners found wandering forests, their eyes wide and vacant, mumbling of angels who devour and demons who sing lullabies to the void. Some were never found at all, their homes left untouched, meals half-eaten, the ritual space still warm with the presence of something unseen. The book leaves no clear trail of where they vanished, as if the pages themselves swallowed their ambition whole. But perhaps the most chilling aspect is that the book does not promise wealth, immortality, or power in the traditional sense. The reward is knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel, a phrase that sounds benign, even uplifting. Yet those who pursued it
speak of encounters with beings beyond comprehension, forces that do not speak with human tongues or recognize human morality. Some report seeing winged entities whose mere presence shatters perception, filling the room with an oppressive gravity that bends light and warps sound. Others claim the guardian is no angel at all, but something ancient, neither good nor evil, but profoundly alien. And should one falter, should a line be misdrawn, a word misspoken, or worse, should the practitioner allow doubt to fester in their heart, the book's other inhabitants stir. It is said that Abramelin houses within its confines the keys to summon a host of infernal forces, each waiting patiently to be unleashed upon the unwary. Where lesser grimoires might offer mere names or symbols, the book whispers the conditions of their freedom, and once they are freed, they do not leave. They linger, slipping into cracks in the mind, infesting dreams, urging madness with every sleepless night. Stories persist of those who attempted shortcuts, dismissing the required months of ritual in favor of quick results. Their lives in turn became nightmarish spirals of paranoia and terror, unseen claws scratching beneath floorboards, distant voices calling from within mirrors, the faces of loved ones subtly distorted in ways only the practitioner seemed to notice. Their pleas for help fell on deaf ears, their torment invisible to the outside world. What began as a path to enlightenment ended as a descent into a private hell, with no clear exit and no forgiveness. In modern times, whispers of the Book of Abramelin surface in esoteric forums and private collections of occult enthusiasts. Some dismiss it as mere folklore, a curiosity from an age obsessed with demons and angels. Yet even skeptics often pause when they encounter first-hand testimonies, reports from individuals who began the work and abandoned it halfway, only to suffer unrelenting nightmares and strange occurrences for years afterward. Despite its ancient origins, the book's influence appears to be alive and well. Within circles of ceremonial magicians, it is treated with a mixture of reverence and fear, spoken of as a test that few complete and fewer survive unchanged. Some claim that the original manuscript was encoded with traps, hidden symbols, or sequences designed to trigger phenomena that bind spirits to the practitioner. Others believe the text acts as a contract, where consent is granted simply through reading and internalizing the instructions. There are even accounts of houses where the book was once read, places now marked by inexplicable cold spots, flickering lights, and the persistent feeling of being watched. Such locations become tainted, their very fabric altered by rituals that crack the barriers between this world and another. Paranormal investigators report malfunctioning equipment, sudden illnesses, and in some extreme cases, an overwhelming sense of dread that forces even the bravest to abandon their work. More unsettling still is the idea that the book itself may not be entirely static. The practitioners claim that on rare occasions, passages rearrange themselves, offering new instructions or warnings that were not present before. Is this the influence of the so-called guardian angel, steering the practitioner towards success? Or are darker forces at play, reshaping the ritual to better ensnare the soul? The danger lies not just in the ritual, but in the book's invitation to explore regions of consciousness where no human should tread. The silence of the abyss stares back through its pages, testing the resolve of anyone who dares read them. Some return with whispers of truths too terrible to speak aloud. Others emerge haunted, convinced they were merely puppets in a game far older and crueler than humanity itself. And yet, despite the warnings, the disappearances, the madness, the book still calls. It lures seekers of forbidden knowledge with the same chilling promise it has whispered for centuries: power beyond imagining, if you can pay the price.
What if there comes a moment when you stand at the threshold, staring into a darkness so absolute that it makes you question whether you were ever awake in the first place? The Book of Abramelin, a manuscript whispered about in forbidden circles, draws its victims to that very brink. Its pages are laced not merely with rituals, but with traps so intricate that even the most brilliant minds have stumbled into the abyss. The final chapter of this journey is not written in ink, but in the quiet madness of those who dare to tread this path. The ultimate question hovers like a silent specter: is it worth it? Is absolute knowledge, power beyond mortal comprehension, and the promise of transcendence worth gambling with your very soul, when the price may be losing your identity forever? The deeper one journeys into the teachings of Abramelin, the more elusive the boundary between the sacred and the profane becomes. The magician, isolated from the world, exhausted, haunted, and pressed beyond every conceivable limit, arrives at a juncture where doubt seeps through every pore of the ritual. Whispers of invisible entities claw at the mind, promising freedom if one merely abandons the right. And yet, pressing forward offers no solace, only the suffocating realization that even success may come with unforeseen chains. Those who have dared to finish the ritual speak of moments where time fractures, where the walls of their secluded chamber pulse as if alive, where shadows twist in patterns that do not belong to this world. Imagine, after months of relentless spiritual warfare, standing face to face with the entity that has guided you all along, the so-called holy guardian angel. Its presence is overwhelming, filling the air with an unbearable vibration, an energy that feels both celestial and utterly alien. Some describe this moment as euphoric, a moment where cosmic order is unveiled. Others warn that the being's gaze unravels the practitioner's mind, stripping away comforting illusions until only naked, unbearable truth remains. But this is where the price becomes most chilling. For to bind the demons who threaten to destroy you, you must now command them. And to command them, you must understand them fully. This is the abyss that does not forgive. In seeking power over the shadows, you open yourself to their whispered secrets, their temptations. Even after banishing them to your will, they linger. Like ancient debts, these forces will not be denied. The accounts that have emerged over the centuries speak volumes. Some practitioners vanish without a trace, their homes left abandoned, the stench of burnt incense still lingering in the air. Others emerge transformed, eyes hollow, and voices stripped of warmth, speaking cryptic phrases and isolating themselves from the world they once knew. What truly terrifies is not merely what they bring back from the other side, but what follows them, unseen, into the lives of others. There are stories of heirs who inherited grimoires from ancestors they never knew, only to be plagued by dreams of sulfur-choked corridors and impossible architecture, always accompanied by a silent, towering figure who watches from the void. Some swear they can still hear the flutes of infernal choirs, distant but relentless, guiding their footsteps even in waking life. As you stand at the edge of the ritual's climax, staring into the pulsating abyss, the Book of Abramelin offers no reassurance. Its grim silence forces the practitioner to confront the void within themselves. To truly finish the ritual, you must surrender, not just to your angel, but to the truth that has been clawing at the edges of your sanity since the first page was read. There is no returning to who you were. The world around you will never again look the same. Doors once shut will remain forever ajar, and with them, the subtle pull of those who whisper from beyond. For some, this is the greatest reward: communion with forces beyond understanding, an elevation above humanity. But others quickly realize that this enlightenment comes at the expense of earthly joys. Food tastes of ash, the laughter of loved ones feels distant, hollow, colors seem muted, as if the very fabric of reality has thinned. The final question becomes unavoidable: is it worth it? When even those who succeed are left to wander the ruins of a shattered psyche, forever marked by what they have witnessed. And this is precisely why so few dare to speak openly about the ritual. It is not merely a matter of secrecy or fear of ridicule. It is a dread born from knowing that no words can ever convey the true horror of stepping beyond the veil. That what awaits in the silence beyond is not merely knowledge, but a gnawing hunger that demands more than you ever thought you could give. The Book of Abramelin does not simply offer power,
It demands a surrender of self so profound that even victory feels like a trap. And when the dust settles, when the final prayers are whispered and the ink on the sigils dries, there remains only the echo of the abyss whispering in your ear, "Was it worth it?"